All right, I'll call the meeting of the Board of Trustees to order for September 26, 2006. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. This evening, our Spanish translator is Ms. Vivian Rodriguez, and I'd like to invite Ms. Rodriguez up to introduce yourself.
Sí, buenas tardes y bienvenidos de parte de la Junta Directiva del Distrito Escolar de Santa Bárbara. Si hay alguien que necesite un intérprete en español, por favor levante la mano para darle un audífono. Gracias.
Gracias, señora Rodriguez. I'd also like to point out that we have headsets available for those who are hearing impaired and need assistive technology. It is listed on our screen for anyone who would like that kind of technology can see us. I think Mr. Hetjank has those available. Okay, we have nothing to announce from our closed session. So that brings us to item C5, introductions, proclamations, presentations, and recognitions. Dr. Sarvis will do the honor.
Well, I do have two presentations tonight. There, how's that? Good, thank you. And the first is for Julie McDonald. Julie, would you please come forward? Julie McDonald, Executive Director of the Maritime Museum, and Eleanor Burciaga, Education Coordinator, who are with us this evening. Hello, glad to have you here. Here, please stand on the camera side. Let me tell you why I invited them tonight. Children explore the museum's unburied treasures and participate in several educational and entertaining programs and activities that provide lessons on maritime culture and history of the local area. The experiences help students envision a healthy future by sustaining the sea and the life and culture that it supports. We've asked Julie to share a few words with us about the Spirit of Dana Point Tall Ship Education Program and the museum's Jason project. And I'd like to turn the mic over to Julie, if I may. I have watched the students muster out to the tall ship, Dana Point, and in this case, it happened to be a fourth grade class from the Santa Barbara Charter School, and as they were told to walk in single file silently without talking to each other, the teacher said, this is the first time in their life they have ever walked single file without talking to each other. So, Julie.
Thank you, Dr. Sarvis. The Tall Ship Youth Education Program, I think, is one of the premier programs that we offer at the Maritime Museum. And why I love it so much is it's a living history program, meaning that the students that participate learn the history in class for 3 to 4 months, and then it culminates in actually living the history aboard a tall ship. For many of the students, it's their first night away from home. So not only are they becoming sailors on the high seas and living the history of a 19th century sailor, but they're also learning to work as a team, leadership skills, and what it takes to run a tall ship. One thing that is, I think, outstanding about the program is it truly encourages the students to stay in school and get a education. They learn very quickly what hard work it is to be a sailor, and that the common sailors back in the 19th century did not know how to read and write, and they were pretty much stuck in that position for the rest of their lives. So they are strongly encouraged after that experience to stay in school and learn, and it's just a wonderful program. I'd like Eleanor to say a few words about our other education programs, and I hope you'll all come down to the Maritime Museum and see the tall ship when she's here. It's a spring program, and we also have a sea festival during the tall ship visit, and it's just a wonderful experience, and I encourage all of you to come down and visit. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. This year, Jason, as Dr. Sarvis mentioned, our Jason program is going through some changes. So we are now implementing the Immersion Presents program, and it's founded by Dr. Ballard, who found the Titanic wreck, and he also started the Jason Project. And this year, they're going to be looking at a national marine sanctuary off the Gulf Coast of Mexico. And the great thing about this program is it's actually an underwater exploration, and the students get to participate by a live broadcast that comes through our high definition theater in the museum. And so they participate in activities throughout the day at the museum that relate to the expedition, and then get to ask questions directly to the explorers on their expedition. So it's a very hands-on interactive program, and we really enjoy bringing Immersion Presents to 5th through 8th grader students. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Julie and Eleanor. You know, in the case of the tall ships overnighter, students read Dana's 2 Years Before the Mast at their grade level. There's a little bit of a different version book that's been revised for their use. Then it comes to life for them. And as they work on that ship, and as they get up to stand watch in the middle of the night, they know what it's like. As they eat the same kind of food that you would eat on a ship like that, they really know what it's like. So they go home good and tired with just a great experience. And of course, Robert Ballard and his explorations of the Black Sea, deep sea explorations, have been just an amazing event in our culture. For us to take on the Jason Project in conjunction with the Maritime Museum, these are both great partnerships. And you know, the district pays in some ways, and the Maritime Museum raises funds so that it helps defray the costs. So we really appreciate your efforts and really appreciate these resources for our students. Madam President?
I also would like to reiterate that we appreciate this. This is an activity that I think our students could go a lifetime without ever having an experience like this, and to have it brought to them at such a young age where they have their lifetime left to sort of build upon it is just great. And we really appreciate the work that you do and the work of those who participate in it with you. Thank you very much. Our whole district is better for it. Thank you.
Well, I have one more recognition tonight. I'd like Jenny Martinez and Susan Ashlock to step forward. The National Association for the Education of Young Children, NAEYC, an 80-year-old organization based in Washington, D.C., has provided a 5-year accreditation to the Santa Barbara School District's Early Childhood Program. The accreditation is valid from July 2006 to July 2011. Boy, you're going to be able to breathe easy now, aren't you? And get that preschool for all going there. In a letter to program coordinator, co-coordinator Jenny Martinez, NAEYC Senior Director Kimberly McClenahan Means stated, "You are all to be commended for providing a high-quality program for young children and their families. NAEYC was established to raise the quality of programs for all children from birth through age 8. The accreditation of programs for young children was established in 1985. It's a voluntary accreditation system. How about that? We would volunteer to stand for accreditation. We don't do it that at the high school level, do we? Well, and we do. We are accredited at the high school. It's a voluntary accreditation system designed to set national professional standards for early childhood education programs, help early childhood programs improve, and help families identify high-quality programs. Congratulations, Jenny, Susan, and your team for a fine job. Do you have other people here tonight? I do. Would you please?
Well, we're so happy to be here today tonight to celebrate with you. We're so excited. Susan is holding the plaque that was presented to us last Wednesday from the National Association for the Education of Young Children, as Dr. Sarvis mentioned, the accreditation plaque. Kim Rogers is here, and she is our site supervisor at the Las Flores Child Development Center. And this plaque represents 4 years of hard work, dedication, commitment to the high quality standards set by the National Association for the Education of Young Children. We hope in the next few years to bring you the accreditation of the McKinley Preschool for All site and for the Santa Barbara High School Early Years Toddler Center. And Susan and I are committed to working in the next 10 years to have all of our sites accredited. So, yes, we are, Susan. So thank you very much for this opportunity to share with you.
Well, once again, thank you very much. Congratulations. And we know that this is the culmination of 4 years of very intensive work to get the accreditation certificate, but also it's really, it seems like a lifetime of work for your dedication to young children. And it sounds like you've committed to the rest of your life as well to get those others accredited as well.
Yes,
So,
right, Susan?
so we appreciate the enormity of your undertaking, and we know that the students are better off for it. Thank you.
Thank you.
And congratulations. Okay, just before Dr. Sarvis moves on to the superintendent's report, I wanted to acknowledge the school board candidates that we have in the audience. Kate Parker, who is running for school board, and Susie Cawthon, who is also running for school board. So these are two candidates, and then of course we have Bob Noel on the board, who is running for re-election. So we are happy that people are taking an interest in this campaign and know that your interest is in serving our students. Now, Dr. Sarvis will give the superintendent's report.
That's good, because last week, under the category of board candidates, we held a meeting for new Board of Education candidates. We provided information on all departments and introduced the candidates to each of the department administrators. It was a long, long afternoon. National Merit semifinalists. This is always an honor for the district. We have 8 National Merit semifinalists this year, 2 from Dos Pueblos, 5 from San Marcos, and 1 from Santa Barbara High School. The students will move through the selection process as part of the finalist level of competition. We will invite the students to a spring board meeting, so you'll be meeting them later this year. Latino Achievement. We've been meeting about Latino Achievement. We have a number of initiatives that the district is undertaking. I will be reporting those to you as we go into our meetings later this fall, just like we reported on the AVID program. Constitution Day. As you know, we have a requirement now. This is not a requirement that has been with us forever, so some people may not know that we have a Constitution Day requirement. It fell on a weekend this last week. So we celebrated it and honored it on the Monday following the weekend. In our districts, our schools participated in a number of ways. For example, at one junior high school, La Colina, the celebration started with a reading of trivia facts, followed by the reading of the preamble to the Constitution. At another junior high, La Cumbra Junior High, during homeroom, 8th graders talked about the importance of the Constitution. Also, every social studies class read about the Constitution and completed worksheets on important questions on the topic. At San Marcos High School, as an example of a high school, social science department celebrated the day with a variety of lessons and activities. Topics included the influence of European political thinkers on constitutional framers, an examination of the U.S. constitutional system as articulated in the Federalist Papers, the origins of the Constitution from pre-revolutionary America through the critical periods of the Articles of Confederation, and the Constitution as a living document with real-world applications and interpretations. PE credit for band members. A recent news article on PE credit for band members created confusion and concern about the issue. And we have heard from a number of parents, as Jan Zettel wrote in the letter to the editor to try to clear up the confusion. The high level of physical training in the Santa Barbara High School District's marching band, drill team, and cheerleading programs is demonstrated in every practice and in every performance. Our students do an outstanding job, and their hard work and commitment is recognized and valued. A recent news press article was not very clear about the problem regarding PE credit for those activities. In addition to rhythm and dance, and these activities like band, drill team, can qualify under rhythm and dance. The state also requires that students meet the PE requirements by having instruction in swimming, gymnastics, sports and self-defense, and frankly, band does not provide that instruction. The state also requires that PE courses be taught by credentialed PE teachers. These are not local decisions, they're directives of the California Department of Education. The school districts are required to be in compliance. We're working with these issues, and these are issues across the state of California. I've read a number of articles by other districts having to grapple with the same question. How do you offer PE credit for band, and then how do you ensure that these students get the rest of the PE instruction that they're required to get?
Dr. Sarvis, I wonder if
Sure.
I may ask, because Mr. Zettel explained it to me, and I think the public would find it useful. Why all of a sudden? Because most of these regulations or provisions in the education code are really quite old, but all of a sudden now, in the last couple of months, it's become a big item.
The district, Dr. Noel, has just undergone a categorical monitoring visit from personnel from the California Department of Ed. And as part of that visit, the young lady who was in charge of physical education and looking into our physical education program verbally, when she talked to us, brought this issue forward for us to look at. I'm still awaiting further advisory information from her. I would like to see where court decisions, may affect our own decision as we go to work on this in our PE task force. So that's why across the state, many high schools are now undergoing this brand new categorical monitoring process, and everything's getting a very close look. If we didn't accept categorical dollars, we wouldn't have to worry about it, but unfortunately, we use every penny of those dollars.
Thank you very much.
Sure. Also creating confusion and misinformation is another recent news story that the district officials have proposed building an affordable housing project for teachers and staff. The board, in fact, will be considering a number of options, among them the possibility of building affordable housing for teachers and staff. Now, board members have not told me how they side on this, nor have we had any public discussion of that. It will occur after the UNIDEV report is completed. The public comment period is through the end of this month. We've received some questions and comments on the draft report. After UNIDEV submits its final report, there will be more board discussion. There will be opportunities for community input, public input, and at that point, board members will be making decisions on these various options. Now, Well, I think I'll just stop there. I'm sort of tired of saying it, but no, we haven't decided any such thing. The board brief. Generally, on the second and fourth Friday of each month, my office issues a report to the board called the board brief. This is a collection of reports and articles on school and district matters. A copy is on display in the reception area, or it can be available in my office. I'd like to call the board's attention to one item in the last board brief. The board saw a memo from Nutrition Services Director Frank Lynn from July 2006 on the move to whole grain, whole wheat products, whole wheat hamburger and hot dog buns, sandwich break. I'm not sure what that is. It's either bread, B-R-E-A-D instead of K. That's good, thank you. I thought it was maybe breakfast, but sandwich bread, dinner rolls, bread, and even pizza crusts that are whole wheat are now the norm. And that's it tonight for the superintendent's report. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sarvis. Okay, student board meeting. We have our student board presentation is usually at our first meeting of the month. So we do not have a student presentation at this meeting. Our presentations will begin in October. Correspondence. Is there any correspondence board members wish to bring forward?
Yes,
Yes.
I'd like to read a memorandum into the record. This is a memorandum from me to Dr. Sarvis, dated the 25th of September, and I deem it a public document. It's a reference to some discussions about La Cumbre and the movement of the academy, the possible move. This is a sad commentary on the facilities master planning process. With all that time and money spent to produce a comprehensive report and input from, quote, all stakeholders, close quote, no one seems to have thought to ask the La Cumbre staff how they feel. Bob Noel. And that's a public document.
I would actually request Dr. Sarvis to read his reply to Dr. Noel's memo, because I think that the La Cumbre community was consulted on a number of occasions. Now, whether or not all the teachers were brought into the discussion, I can't say. I wasn't there, but every single school was consulted on multiple occasions, and every single school principal, stakeholders, PTA members can attest to that, with the exception of La Cumbre. So I would like for Dr. Sarvis to respond.
I'm waiting for Mr. Price to raise some agendizing
Well, look,
issues about this discussion.
I believe I can answer it. Let me just say I don't have that response readily available. I'd be happy to put it on the agenda because I do think it warrants a response. I think there's been a lot of work done in trying to get input, and I think it's an unfair criticism, frankly. So I'll be happy to put that on a future meeting.
As I say, I was reading this into the record, which, as I understand from Mr. Price, our counsel, is what one does when one CCs the rest of the board in writing a memo. And I read it into the record only to make sure that I am in compliance with the Brown Act.
Well, you know, Dr. Noel, I don't want to be disputatious here, except that it says received correspondence. Board members have received correspondence. Now, I received your correspondence, but you did not receive your correspondence.
Mrs. Harder, I am trying to comply with advice that was given by counsel about a year and a half ago by making sure that any document that I sent to other members of the board is a public document, and he suggested that this is the way to do it, and that is all I'm trying to do. I did not mean to precipitate a debate. A debate is not agendized, and I would welcome a debate, but that was all that I'm trying to do.
I actually have a question then for Mr. Price. Do we need to read into the record any correspondence that we send to each other? If we have CC'd, okay, but if we have an informational item that we have sent out to the entire board, do we need to read it into the public record?
When it comes to board correspondence, generally there's no requirement that any correspondence originating from any of you be read into the record. However, in the rare event when there could be a potential problem and a board member wishes to publicly go on record with respect to a certain item, then under this heading on the agenda, they may do so. In addition, without getting into a prolonged discussion, when correspondence is introduced, it's appropriate, it's not impermissible, for there to be a brief discussion only with regard to that matter, including any questions that board members may have.
Okay, thank you. So the reading of it into the record is purely discretionary, though? Is that what correct? Am I interpreting?
Yes,
your
it's
statement
up to
correctly?
individual board members to share with the rest of the board and the public any correspondence they wish to share.
Okay, thank you.
But again, referring, I think, to what Dr. Noel may have in mind, there could be a situation where, upon review, a board member felt that it was necessary or appropriate to do so because, for example, of a potential Brown Act concern. But that would be a rare exception, and it would depend upon, a certain amount of detail that we don't need to get into tonight.
Thank you.
I'm trying to spare everybody the details, but in fact, the question of the Brown Act was raised in a response to that note, and I wanted to be sure and be in compliance.
There's no Brown Act raised. Okay. All right, then that has been addressed.
And we are encouraged to not send messages to one another via email per our previous board workshops on the Brown Act.
Yes.
Correct.
Thank you. Okay, we're at public comment.
Yes, we have several here. Mike Schellenberger, followed by Alice Tarbush.
Okay, and I remind speakers that this is the point at which you would speak on items that are not on tonight's agenda, and also to remind you that you will have 3 minutes. I will give you a 30-second heads up when you're 30 seconds from your 3 minutes, and please try to adhere to the time limit. The red light will come on when your time is up.
Cool.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Schellenberger.
Thank you. I am Mike Schellenberger. I proudly teach at La Cumbre Junior High. I rode my bike to school this morning, and tonight I drove here in a car that runs on vegetable oil, done by students at La Cumbre, because I made a commitment to try and make the earth a better place. A huge part of that commitment is me teaching at La Cumbre, offering a quality education to students who deserve it, who need a creative, encouraging environment. And I'm concerned that that job is going to get more difficult with some of the decisions you guys are looking at making. There was just recently a discussion about input from La Cumbre staff. I've only been at La Cumbre for 4 years, so I don't know the full history. But when the newspaper article came out this summer about the academy coming over, that was the first I've ever heard about it, and I don't recall ever anyone asking for my input. I've only been there 4 years. It could have happened before I arrived. In thinking about bringing the academy over, an elementary school onto a secondary campus raises some grave concerns for me with my industrial technology program. I don't mean to sound arrogant, but I do believe that the industrial tech program is one of the magnets attracting more and more students to La Cumbre. I think it has an incredibly powerful impact on their self-esteem and their achievements in the academic realm. I believe they read harder and work more on math in my class for some of these students than they do elsewhere. In the last few years, we've converted a car to run on used cooking oil. We've presented our project at the Earth Day Green Car Show. We've been on national radio, televised. We created a 30-minute documentary about the project. Last year, we created a solar-powered golf cart, which we escorted Lois Capps in the 4th of July parade. All of this was because, to be honest with you, we have a phenomenal facility. I could not do it without the facility we have. It was designed by a shop teacher who knew how to teach shop. And I fear that with the possible bringing over of the K-3 grades, it would impact my program. I would encourage you, board members, I want to invite you, please, come see the facility. Come see the program that you quite possibly might be
30
inadvertently
seconds.
that you might be inadvertently but systematically dismantling. And for what else it's worth, I think that the school buses should run on biodiesel. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schellenberger.
Alice Tarbush, followed by Laura Baker.
Good evening, members of the board, Dr. Sarvis, administrative staff, fellow employees, and guests. I'm sure you have heard of me or seen me over the many, many years that I've been associated with the school district. But at this particular point, I am privileged to serve both the Santa Barbara Community Academy and La Cumbre Junior High School. I feel that both the elementary and junior high should work together for the best interests of the total student population. Understandably, the academy seeks to reunite its K-6 school on a single campus. At the same time, La Cumbre Junior High School is reclaiming its students and had a 20% increase of enrollment this year. The current status of the upper grade academy classes at La Cumbre Junior High shows a workable relationship, sharing facilities with services without serious encroachment upon either entity. However, to move 10 primary classrooms plus an appropriate library and other and special education room and other needed facilities would require the upper grade academy students to relinquish their current area, which was revamped to meet their specific and unique needs. The space available would not accommodate all of the primary group, which would be forced to use other non-adjacent rooms to house the children. The upper graders would have to filter into the main building and taking up much of the ground floor. The junior high would be relegated to the second floor and some special purpose rooms and labs. This would require major rehabilitation, designated routes for the interclass movement, and special access to the main office. Undoubtedly, much expense would be incurred. The alternative may be to re-examine the elementary sites where the enrollment is low or where the students may be kept at home schools rather than being bused to other sites. The Cleveland site also has declining enrollment and could also serve as a potential campus without the problem of having two different school year schedules. In conclusion, my alma mater, La Cumbre, is needed as a secondary school for the West Side. It has been
30
given
seconds.
the status of a historical landmark, and to make any exchanges to the exterior would be costly and require permission and approval by the Historical Society. Thank you for your attention, and I'm sure there'll be a resolution that will be helpful for both groups. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tarbush.
Laura Baker, followed by Tiara Dotson.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Laura Baker. I'm a teacher at La Cumbre Junior High. I'm here to discuss the issue of the Academy's parent survey that was done, I think it was last spring. We at La Cumbre really don't know what the survey looked like, what the questions were, what it entailed. And I'm wondering if the 150 respondents to that survey, and of that, the 50% of them that were in favor of the K-6 unification at the La Cumbre site were aware of the fact that they would not be provided busing once they're unified at La Cumbre. Since they're a school of choice doesn't get busing as far as I understand. So what I'm wondering is, would their opinions of the K-6 move be altered as a result of understanding that the busing wouldn't be provided? That's a key question that needed to be part of that survey, and I don't know if it was there. What I don't understand is if let me tell you where I'm coming from. I've heard from several academy parents that they think that busing will be provided if they're at K6 at La Cumbra. And it doesn't make sense to me that one school of choice would be provided busing when the other schools are not. You don't provide busing to Cesar Chavez, OAS, or Santa Barbara Charter. And what would make one school of choice more worthy of busing than another, or the other three? It doesn't seem fair. So that's an issue that I think needs to be looked at seriously and decide how you're going to address that issue. The other issue that I think needs to be brought up is that of the facility at La Cumbra and the forcing of mixed use by an elementary school and a junior high school in an indoor facility such as La Cumbra. With the K3 needing to be housed downstairs only and the option of having some of the 4 through 6 upstairs, are the parents aware of the fact that there are only 2 bathrooms upstairs, 1 boys and 1 girls, that would be used by all 4th through 8th graders? And you can't schedule bathroom times. You can't say to the 4th graders, you can go to the bathroom from this time to this time, and the 7th and 8th graders, you can go from this time to this time. You're going to have kids that are going to meet in the hallway and meet in the bathroom. Think about downstairs where you'd have K for 1, 2, 3, or even if you have the K isolated in the current wing for the 4 through 6, you have K over there, you've got 1st, 2nd, and 3rd graders trying to use the restrooms with 7th and 8th graders. And as a parent of a kindergarten child, or a little girl who will be in 1st grade next year, I wouldn't want my daughter going into the bathroom with an 8th grader. And I wouldn't want, my son to go into the bathroom with an 8th grade boy and stand at the same urinal and go to the restroom. That's a little scary thought as a parent. And I think that needs to be looked at. We can't expect the kids to
30 seconds.
Thank you. To go all the way out to the other part of the school to go to the restroom. That's just not feasible. So I'm requesting the new parent survey be issued once all these facility issues are discussed, and issue that survey to not only academy parents, but also to the La Cumbra parents and the staff and families of all of those entities. I think that would make most sense to get as much information as possible. Finally, my final request is that please direct this administration to allow our principal to speak to us as a staff. We had a very frustrating staff meeting today. We wanted to ask her questions, and she said, I can't do it. And it's not right that the staff can't talk to their own principal. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Baker.
Tiara Dotson, followed by Dina Zamaran? Sorry. Tiara.
Good evening. Sounds kind of like a La Cumbra night tonight, and I'd like to continue on La Cumbra. I am a proud teacher at La Cumbra. My name is Tiara Dodson, and we had the opportunity to draft a letter, which I'd like to go ahead and give to you, but I'd like to read it into public record. It's dated with today's date, and you'll find many staff and teacher signatures in agreement with this statement. It says, Dear members of the Santa Barbara School District Board of Education, as you consider the possible placement of the K6 Santa Barbara Community Academy at the La Cumbra Junior High School campus, we respectfully request that you look at the following issues. Our first issue, the importance of retaining La Cumbra as a comprehensive, competitive junior high school offering all the programs available at the 3 other junior high schools, including foreign language, art, instrumental music, performing arts, industrial technology, computer technology, physical education facilities, and science laboratory facilities. Number 2, the unique challenge of dividing the 2-story single building at La Cumbra and inside school versus the allocation of sections from an outside school, such as La Colina and Goleta Valley. This includes shared use of bathrooms, hallways, cafeteria, and outdoor spaces. Creating a separate and protected space for the grades 4 to 6 was easily accomplished by cordoning off the 6th grade hallway. Providing an additional 10 classrooms in proximity to this hallway compromises the integrity of La Cumbra Junior High School and its academic offerings. Our third point, the ingress and egress challenges of a single-laned shared use driveway. The neighborhood street traffic and the safety challenges of drop-off, pickup, and drive-through areas needed by an elementary school. This is especially critical as the SBCA, a school of choice, will not have bus service to our understanding. The fourth area of concern that we have is the need to create a separate entrance and school front for the additional school as was mentioned at the workshop on August 29th. A careful examination of how school capacity is calculated, given that schools have specialty rooms such as a band room, industrial technology shops, which have a very specific use, and this will make it very difficult. I'd also like to bring up the fact that I teach partially in a science lab. It's not used 6 periods a day, but if we had another class permanently in there, I wouldn't be able to take my students down for the enriching science program that I'm able to offer at La Cumbre because I have a separate science lab. We have included a map of La Cumbre Junior High School for your information, and we cordially invite you to come and visit our campus with an eye on creating these 2 separate schools. We are happy to have the La Cumbre family share our facility with the Community Academy. I feel, again, like I mentioned last time, we've done a nice job sharing our facility, and it's worked well because they have a separate place. But please consider, before you make a decision, come and see, walk through our school. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dodson.
Dina Zamaron, followed by Kenneth Locke.
Hi, my name is Dina Zamorin, and I am a concerned parent. I'm from Santa Barbara with a couple, 4 generations deep. I don't know if that is really going to make a difference, but it is somewhere I do feel like this is home, and I've set up my family, and this is where I've stayed and wanted to be. And I'm concerned with the mingling of La Cumbre and the academy. I'm going to read some parts of the letter that another parent has written, and she's allowed me to do this because she was unable to be here. We as parents have heard conflicting news about the proposals of the board considering regarding La Cumbre Junior High and the Community Academy. And we would like to address those of what we have heard, but we want to begin the most essential element. The school district or the school board must clarify exactly what's being considered and what the timelines are. As a parent, I've heard nothing. I've never seen a survey. I live on the west side. I've heard nothing until the past week. When I went to view La Cumbre, before I decided to choose to have my daughter go there, I went there knowing that maybe it had had previous problems in the past. And then when I went there, I was completely impressed as a parent and was very happy and thrilled that my daughter wanted to go there. And Mrs. Keynes has done an amazing job, in my opinion. So let me just read this other thing. Why La Cumbre? We are very impressed with the work Mrs. Keynes and her staff has done. The staff is talented and caring. The kids are respectful. The campus is positive. As parents, we are moved by Mrs. Keynes' insistence that junior high is not a mini high school, but a bridge between elementary and high school for kids at a critical juncture. We are impressed with the science labs, the computer labs, and especially with the unique and innovative industrial technology program that Mr. Schallenberg is a bit of a legend. Each year, his students work on a special project in addition to the other work. Last year, the students built a solar-powered golf cart, and it was mentioned that Congresswoman Capps was joined them in the experience.
30 seconds.
Last year, they rebuilt an engine to run on salad oil. Sorry, I'm just very nervous. This year, they are building electric bicycles. Each year, his students take most of the top prizes in inter-school competitions. The challenge is the kids to innovate and create. His is like having a second science class for budding engineers, but rumor has it that this amazing workshop will be eliminated and made into a classroom for the K-3 Academy of Students, and this is a concern of mine. Here's a letter she wanted me to share with you.
Thank you, Mrs. Amaran.
Kenneth Locke, followed by Susie Cawthorn.
My name is Kenneth Locke. I want to talk about physical ed. Right now in physical ed, the focus is on competition, and it reflects on the rest of the education. I'm explaining the basis of what it means to be enlightened. I'm claiming to have witnessed an enlightenment through the arts and then also through tennis. Came into a realization of knowledge which has not been realized before. This is the nature of what a genius is in relation to the progression of humanity, and I'm explaining in relation to the next renaissance that we're going to enter into. Right now, when you think of tennis, you think of it as a competitive means to an end, exclusively. This is what we can understand as the unenlightenment. People who have this perspective on tennis need to be enlightened. Being the person who has been enlightened, I can explain the basis of that enlightenment so that at least they can have the knowledge in relation to what they're missing out on. And then invite them, but then it has to be entertained by them. But I shared a page with City Council called Competitive Tennis is Meaningless. It's actually based on a winner or loser. It just goes on and on and on. The basis of what is meaningless means that it does not have an end in itself. In the page, I mentioned the problem with having a meaningless competitive relationship with tennis is based on the fact that it does not have the means for an individual to become enlightened. It just goes on, and they remain separated from that knowledge and also that relationship. Another problem is the relationship between the mind, body, spirit, and soul, and between the serve, forehand, backhand, will never reach a point of integration. Also, they will never have an integrated relationship with any other discipline. I'm talking about a shift of paradigm here.
30 seconds.
And I know that there's the action that you won't be able to take. It's pretty extreme, but through my dialogue, I'm hoping to actually just be able to share this information with the community that I'm kind of dwelling in. Speaking for the city, I'll be speaking for the Parks and Rec. I've communicated with Kathy, who's the director of tennis, and I'm going to see if they could include me on the program and see what it would take for that to happen. I've been in the community for about 8 years now, and I did it in the past, and I'm going to try it again, and I'll keep you up to date on what transpires. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Locke. That concludes our public comment. We will now move on to our consent agenda. I'm sorry, Dr. Sarvis.
Just a couple of brief comments. We've heard a number of comments tonight about La Cumbre and how the La Cumbre campus might be shared with Community Academy. First of all, we value La Cumbre as a junior high school. We value the hard work and dedication of the staff, and we expect that to continue. Secondly, there's a lot of conjecture about how the campus might accommodate the two schools and what changes that might entail. We have been asked by the board to further study how the two schools might share the campus. Third, the survey is readily available to all. It was in the board brief a month ago. It's easy to obtain. Just call my office and we'll be happy to get you a copy of it. And finally, we have a number of elementary schools on junior high campuses. We have Santa Barbara Charter on the Goleta Valley campus. We have Open Alternative School located on the La Colina campus. I don't want members of the public to have the impression that this is something highly unusual.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Sarvis. That brings us to our consent agenda. Are there any items on the consent agenda that board members wish to pull for later discussion? Ms. Harder?
Yeah, I have one very quick question about item D4 and also a quick question about item D12.
Okay.
May I ask you to...
Dr. Noel? Oh, I'm
Yes,
sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Go
Dr.
ahead.
Noel?
Bob.
D5, D7, D9, D13.
5, 7, 9, and 13. Okay.
And I would like to note that under D2, we are pulling the Goleta Valley raffle.
Okay.
And under D8, the actual amount is $46,000, and that's site categorical funding. Thank you.
Okay.
Move to approve the remaining items on the consent agenda.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Motion carries. We will move on to the action agenda. We will come back to those items that were pulled at the end of this meeting. Okay. Action agenda, item E1, approval of contract and services with Edusoft for data analysis and benchmark exams. And I believe, Ms. Harder, you wanted to make a suggestion on this one?
Yeah, a request. It's a large amount of money, and we have not seen it on a conference agenda, and I could be mistaken. There could have been information about it in the board brief, but I don't have any recollection. So I would really like to deal with this as a conference agenda item for this evening. I have a lot of questions about it, and I'm not sure that I would be prepared to make a decision. So if we could move forward on that basis.
Well, you have a mind like a steel trap, so if you don't recollect seeing it, I'm guessing we didn't see it. Would there be any objection, Mr. Zettel, to pulling it and putting it, well, not pulling it, but taking it as a conference item instead of a action item?
The only objection I might have is that this proposal goes through September 30th, and we might have to renegotiate some parts of this proposal if it were to be approved at a later agenda.
Okay, because I think we had some fairly extensive questions about this one.
One question.
I would like to, well, let me hear from the rest of the board first.
Just one question being whether it went out for competitive bid with other services of a similar kind.
Yeah, so I'm going to ask the board, before we get into discussion about the item, are we prepared to take it under the action agenda, or do we want to move it to consent agenda? I'm sorry, to conference agenda.
I'm fine with hearing, having the discussion, hearing the presentation, having the discussion, and then making a decision, but I don't think that I would be prepared to vote tonight.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and take the discussion now then. We'll raise our questions, and I had one just very general question, which I'm assuming maybe other people might have had, and that is, what is the funding for this? Where is this? Did I miss it, or?
No.
Okay.
That was going to be part of the presentation.
Okay.
The funding will come out of EIA or the TIG, and that's right now. Then I would hope that we would get Microsoft dollars and reimburse those two funds with Microsoft dollars, which would be perfectly acceptable to do.
Would you repeat those funding sources, please?
Yes, EIA, which is a categorical fund, and TIIG, which is a supplemental categorical fund.
What's that stand for?
Oh, my goodness.
Economic Impact Aid.
Aid and Targeted Help Instructional Grant, something grant.
It's a targeted instruction.
These
grant.
are state
Improvement
grants.
grant, right.
Yes.
Let me also suggest, since Mr. Zettel just made the recommendation, that we put in the board brief information about the settlement, about the Microsoft settlement, so that you know where that's headed.
I mean, I would really like to hear the presentation and the discussion. It's $116,000, and the rights count every single student. So unless we know we're getting those Microsoft dollars, then we are way out of compliance with using categorical funds on this particular proposal. So let's hear the presentation, but
That would be great. We're glad to do that. I'd like to, first of all, introduce the program to you. EduSoft is a company that has created a software program that uses a number of assessment products, services to help teachers, principals, district office people to analyze student data, to create student assessments. It creates benchmark exams, which is something this district has needed for a long time. There are many teacher tools, many ways to analyze the state data that we load directly into EduSoft down to the classroom level. Also curriculum management, and we're going to show you kind of a demonstration of all of this. I don't want to go into it much further. It's very complex and very deep. 40%, I believe, and Mr. Patton, who I'm going to invite up here in just a moment, will verify that I believe 40% of the districts in California use this program. We've looked at programs from ETS Pulliam. We've looked at programs from CTB McGraw-Hill that are similar, and it's our feeling that this is the one, after we had them both provide us with, or all three of them actually provide us with detailed descriptions so that we were able to go line by line and look at the services each provides. We feel that EduSoft is the one that we would like to go with. And so I'd like you to take a look at it. And if it takes further study, we're glad to do that. So without further hesitation here, I'd like to introduce Mr. Chris Patton. He comes to us from EduSoft and a little further away from Evergreen, Colorado.
Thanks,
you,
Jan. As Jan mentioned, my name is Chris Patton, and I'm actually with Riverside Publishing, which is a Houghton Mifflin company. About 2 years ago, Houghton Mifflin actually purchased EduSoft, and at that time, there was about 300 districts within California that were using the EduSoft platform. And most recently, we merged with Riverside Publishing, which is the maker of the Iowa test and the COGAT and the Gates-McGinnity reading test, which really made us a very strong player, even stronger than we were before in California. As Jan said, there's a bunch of districts that actually are using the platform in California, and some of them very close by. Ventura, Ojai, Conejo Valley, Port Hueneme are all districts that use the platform. So what I'd like to do is give you guys a brief synopsis of what the platform really holds in terms of tools for the district. Yesterday we had the opportunity to meet with principals and show them the tools and how it really impact their ability to analyze data and what types of data it would give for teachers. And I have to tell you, they were very excited about the tools that they would get from this platform. So I've got some actual PowerPoint slides that I'd like to show you. EduSoft, it's a web-based assessment system that allows the district to take advantage of really any content that you've already purchased in terms of textbook materials, in terms of assessments that you have developed. And it's really set out into really 3 different tools that the district is looking at purchasing. The first tool is called State Analysis. And what this allows us to do is we load in all of your high-stakes test data, your California Standards tests, all of your Casey administrations, the CELT, the Cat 6, and make this into basically a data warehouse that makes it very easy for teachers to make 2 clicks and get reports on how my students in my class did overall in my class, how they did by standard, how each student did, what was most problematic standard in my class. It also lets principals do the same thing, and it also lets the district administrators look at what are the areas that we really struggle in the CST, where do we need to guide professional development, what are the areas that we need to impact, so that next year we look to improve our student achievement. So that's the state analysis piece. It gives you the ability to look at, really pull up students by any score, find students that dropped by 5 points since last year. Really a really easy tool to use. The second tool is benchmark exams, or what we call periodic assessments. This tool will allow the district to take advantage of all the assessments you're currently using, like High Point, the Hampton-Brown test, open court assessments. We have the answer sheets already built for those. Basically the MTTP, which is some of the math assessments you're already using in the district for algebra and algebra readiness. It also allows the district to build formative benchmark assessments completely correlated to the California content standards, so that you can do basically district-wide benchmarking to do periodic checks to see how your students are doing by standard so that you can prepare for the California Standards Test and ultimately impact your AYP. So that is our benchmark tool. It allows you to basically deliver assessments, paper to web, district-wide, and have the results reported within 1 to 2 minutes at the district level so that I know exactly where my weaknesses are in terms of standard performance in the classroom, in a grade level, in an entire school district. So that's the benchmark tool. With that, we are providing item banks completely correlated to the California content standards so the district can easily build benchmark assessments in reading, math, history, social sciences, and we can also provide you with fixed form science assessments as well to also help you prepare for the California Standards Test, which is really the test that's driving everything within districts and what they're doing. So that's the benchmark assessment model, and I'll talk about how the assessments are delivered in just a minute. The next tool is really for teachers to use within the classroom. It allows teachers to take advantage of any existing assessment they're giving today, be able to deliver that paper to web and get results back that same morning to know how my students are doing in my own class. And this is a way that teachers can have their own private area to do the types of standards-based lesson plans and assessments, get that information back so I can inform instruction in my own classroom area. So those are the 3 tools that the district is looking at purchasing. And again, it's web-based, so teachers can get on from home, principals can get on from home, and actually do some work from home in terms of productivity. The way that the assessments can be scored, and I talked about assessments you're already using in the district that teachers are having to hand score and trying to figure out what every student is weak at in terms of standard in their class, takes a huge amount of time. If I have 25 students in my class and I have to score an open court assessment or if I have to score a district benchmark assessment, it's going to take me several days to score by standard for every one of my students. What we've developed is a plain paper-to-web technology which uses plain copy paper that answer sheets are printed on. We tie into your ARIES student information system, so we pull your rosters, and basically this is what an answer sheet would look like for a teacher's class. The student bubbles in their name on the left. You can take multiple choice answers, constructive response, or short answer questions and have those types of questions. The students fill in the bubble, it's put in a $300 scanner at the school, and in 1 minute the results are posted on the web, so I can basically inform instruction in the afternoon after I've assessed in the morning. So that's really the process for scoring results. You can also do the same results if you wanted to deliver the test online. You can do it online as well, but districts don't like to tie up their computer labs for assessments when you can get the results just as fast and do it paper to web. So that's basically the process for scoring assessments. The process that you use for getting results back on high stakes assessments, the California Standards Test, we give you basically powerful tools that allow you to look at your different ed programs, your different teachers, courses, basically allow you to point and click and develop reports for groups, for individual students, for teachers' classes. So it's basically point and click that gives you access to this type of data. And we store all the data, so we will be able to give you 3 years of California Standards Test, 3 years of KC administration. So you have basically one tool to look at state test data and district formative data to build a profile of how students are doing across all those types of assessments. This is an example of a report that would be derived from a district benchmark. It's going to tell you basically how my students did overall on the program. So right here, this is the average performance of a test that was administered to 207 students. It's going to tell me that overall my students were progressive. It breaks it down into performance bands. So it allows you to look at overall district. But then it's going to break it down into standards. So right away, right down here in terms of overall standard performance of the 5 standards that were assessed on this test, I know that reading 1.1 is the most problematic standard in my whole 3rd grade, basically from this assessment. So I can launch improvements in professional development. I can actually look at this district benchmark in the fall and then another one in the winter and see if my interventions have actually taken hold, so I can start to look at progress monitoring to see if what I'm doing is actually working with students. And this is all in preparation, so when the California Standard Test comes back up, it's not a surprise. I know standard by standard how my students are doing, and it allows me to prepare ahead of time. So it also tells you down at the bottom exactly what these standards are in terms of the California Content Standard Language. So I know right down at the bottom what standard 1.1 is, so every teacher knows what my students are struggling at. It also allows me to basically create custom groups of students. So after I deliver a benchmark exam, I can find out, maybe there's 66 students in my entire district that struggle with that particular standard. I can create a custom group of those students for after-school interventions and track those students to make sure that the intervention is taken. So this tool allows you to really select specific students, target them for intervention, and then track their progress in terms of meeting that particular standard. You can use it for after-school programs. You can use it for Title I students, really any way you want to use it in terms of customizing instruction for students. This is the type of report that a teacher would get from a district benchmark. The other report which we showed you was more of a district level report of how all my students did across the district and what was the most problematic standard. A teacher basically would get this same report for his or her class immediately after delivering a benchmark assessment. So down the left side is all the students in my class. It's going to tell me the overall performance on the test. So if it was a 100-point test and I got 90 out of 100, then I would be advanced, and I would show up in green on this particular side right here. So this is overall performance. And then across the top is each of the standards that were assessed on that particular reading benchmark. And then this is the group average for my class. So this is a class right here for Benjamin Franklin Elementary. And this specific teacher, this is Emma Cass's class. So right away, just being color-coded, I can start to target students that I know. These students are actually listed by performance on this assessment. So this particular student was far below basic overall, far below in all the standards, but below basic in this particular standard. So immediately I can get this so I can drive instruction in my classroom. And we showed this yesterday to the principals, and they loved this report. Because now for your grade level teams, each teacher can come to a meeting, same assessment, measured under the same guidelines and cut points, and have discussions about, my students did really well in this particular standard, yours didn't do so well, what did you do differently? We start to have those conversations, which are really going to benefit you in terms of increasing performance in the district.
Can I just ask you a question on that last line?
Sure.
I saw the top line was a group average. What about other statistics? Standard deviation, variance, standard deviation.
Absolutely. You get all the psychometrics of the assessment, so you can start to look at, you get all the psychometrics of the assessment. So the difficulty of each item, what the cognitive level of those items were, what was the most problematic item, what was the most frequently incorrect answer, all those types of things with the psychometrics of the assessment you'll actually get.
By class?
By class. Okay. By class and for the entire district.
Thank you.
It also allows you to basically print out reports by student that's going to give you a profile of a student's complete assessment history, all of the state tests that specific student has taken. So this is one for Adriana. So for parent-teacher conferences, for counselors, the ability to do 2 clicks and have a complete assessment report for a student for high-stakes tests, and then all the district-level benchmarks is really powerful in terms of storing data and making it easy for teachers and counselors to get that type of data.
And there'll be a longitudinal database then for that whole child's?
Exactly.
For that child's whole history in the system?
Exactly. So longitudinal for that specific child, longitudinal for teachers' classes, longitudinal for the entire district in terms of high-stakes analysis and benchmarks.
Could a teacher who is interested then do value-added analysis with it?
I suppose a teacher could do a value-added analysis to determine what, how much time am I spending on this intervention? Is it actually taking hold? So I'm sure they could do some type of study like that.
Or this group of students in my class came in with a certain profile, certain deficiencies, certain strengths. When they left the class, that changed. therefore, because nothing else changed in the universe, presumably, one can draw the inference that it had something to do with the treatment in the class. Can you make inferences like that with your data?
Sure, I suppose that you could.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask a question? Who puts the data in?
So we load all the data for you. So you send us your STAR CDs. We take an export from your Eagle Aries system. We do 100% of the data loading. The district does 0. And we do periodic roster updates throughout the year. So students change classes, change teachers, teachers move around. We do all those data imports for you. All the training and professional development is included in this proposal. It's on-site training in terms of teaching teachers, how to use the program, showing district administrators how to use the program.
How long does the training take?
So we have 9 days of training to be spread out throughout the district, and it takes about a half a day per module to get teachers up and running in terms of this platform.
So somehow we have to pay for the teachers to do that as well.
Yeah.
I guess I want to go back a bit. Is there your answer, as I reflect on it, said, yes, one could do that, I suppose. Is there a standard report for value added?
Well, we don't call it a value-added report, but you can look at longitudinal analysis from one assessment to another to see how students have moved by standard, and you could make all kinds of inferences based upon that. But you can definitely look, from a fall test to the winter test, at each student level, at each teacher level, and make inferences upon, why did this happen? Why did my students make particular gains? Or why did they fall in particular standards based upon my instruction or based upon the professional development rolling out in the district?
And the users how much flexibility is there for the users to generate special reports?
There's as much flexibility as teachers will need. We have, because we tie into your Eagle Aries system, we have all of your ed programs loaded, all of your ethnicities loaded, all of your course rosters loaded. So I could run a report for the female, Japanese, students in the 3rd grade in this particular teacher's class. So it's very flexible in terms of how you report.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. So this is the last slide I was going to show you, to be able to, the ability to run reports for individual students. So this is a tool that's very powerful, but the thing is it's easy for us to get your teachers up and running and using it. We have a 96% renewal rate in California over the last 5 years with districts. So the support that we deliver and the training we deliver really take hold. And I provided Jan and Cynthia White with a list of references that they contacted of other districts that have used this platform. So I think that the background of the platform is very strong, and it really works in California to help increase student achievement.
Thank you, Chris. And board, I know we're very time limited here. If you have further questions, I'd be glad to take those questions. If you'd like to email them to me, I'll forward them to Chris or try to answer them myself. But we need to move on.
I do have one, for the record.
Okay.
What can you produce some validation research on the item? You mentioned item pools. I'd be very much interested in knowing what kind of validation research studies have been done with them.
Sure, we can give you basically the 30-step process that each of these items goes through before we actually put it into the item bank. So I can provide you with all that information.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. I think that we will need to come back to this item. We probably are not prepared to take action on it. And unfortunately, we do have to be aware of time because we have to go back into closed session at the end of this meeting.
I just have one request for the next time we get this item, although I have questions that I will be happy to email, and that is if we could see a more complete fee structure, where the funds are going to come from, and what the total cost is, because we see the cost of the licensing fees, but we don't see the cost of the in-service training. We don't see the cost of scanners. I don't know if we have scanners in the district, and I don't know if there are any other hardware costs connected to it, and whether, obviously it's web-based, but whether we have sufficient wiring at all of our schools, our secondary schools, in order to support it. So I'd love to see all the costs.
We'll be glad to do that.
Yeah. I would also be interested in knowing whether teachers are going to be able to do this in the time that they have, or is there going to need to be time set aside for them to create these kinds of groups and data? So just any of the maybe the hidden costs that we don't initially see.
Madam
Okay.
President, I have a
Yes,
question
I'm sorry.
as well.
Ms. Rodriguez?
As I was reading the memo, and perhaps this could go into the documentation for the next meeting, I was just looking for a little bit more background. I understand that this is something new, that we don't do it now, and that it's being done by teachers sort of on their own time or by hand, or if we could have a little bit of a comparison, because probably we're talking about saving teachers time. So if we're going to look at hidden costs, this sort of jumped right into what this is, and I was looking for context and current practice and a little bit more background information. So I'd appreciate that in the memo for the next time we hear this.
Be glad to do that too, and that's the point. We're trying to save teachers time, and this is a great tool to save them time and to sharpen the focus of their practice.
I see in it, and apropos of Mrs. Harder's comments, I see at least one FTE technical assistance and maybe a half FTE or an FTE coordinator. And I'd sure like to see some estimates on that. Well, I'm just
Okay.
going by past experience.
So
Bring in a new system, you're bringing in new needs and new requirements for personnel.
Yes, and I apologize, Mr. Patton, that we have to move sort of quickly through this. We do have a tight schedule this evening. So again, any board members who have additional questions or comments or information that we'd like to receive, please forward that to Mr. Zettel before our next meeting, and we will come back to this item again.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Okay, earlier when I was going through the agenda, I stated that we normally have our student board representative at our first meeting of the month. And I believe that we do have a student board member here, and I apologize for making you wait through this whole meeting, and we could have gotten you up before us earlier, but this is Sarah Spaventa, who is from San Marcos High School, and will be giving us our first student board report for the school year. Thank you.
Well, first, let me say that was very interesting. Having to sit through that, I actually enjoyed it. I was glad I stayed. I'm just going to go through a couple things that we're doing at San Marcos High School right now. Our ASB is really concentrating on homecoming. It is coming up October 14th, and we're holding it at the USEN, as we have years before. Our theme this year is The Great Gatsby, and it's based on the movie and book The Great Gatsby, which takes place in New York City and Long Island in the 1920s. It's described as the epitome of the jazz age, and we're all really excited for it because as a junior class officer, we're putting lots of money into decorations. We're even painting murals to put on the walls. I believe that this year's homecoming is going to be one of our greatest dances yet. We even had to raise the ticket prices to accommodate for the decorations we're purchasing. In addition, this year we made a new policy. We only limited guest passes to 80, as years before we've had San Marcos students who have wanted to attend but have not been able to because limited space. So this year we made it only 80 guest passes, and it was a big dilemma at the ASB meetings whether to make guest passes only offered for seniors and juniors first and then the underclassmen, but we voted on it and decided that it would be a first come, first serve basis. So now we have students all trying to purchase guest passes so they can take their guests from like Dos Pueblos, Santa Barbara, or other places. Ticket sales will begin on October 2nd and 3rd for juniors and seniors, and it's open to all underclassmen on October 5th. In addition to that, really exciting, last Friday we had our homecoming princesses announced. This year's homecoming princesses are Eden Gutierrez, Kelsey Hahn, Karen Hernandez, Alejandro Quintero, and Kate Ransahoff, who I believe you know. She was a student board rep last year. Really exciting. All the seniors were really excited for it. And at our homecoming football game, which we would all like you guys to come to, they will announce the homecoming queen, and that is on October 13th. In addition, San Marcos is struggling with construction right now, which is kind of basically limiting students because for me, myself, we have morning practices for sports and we don't have any place to shower. So it's pretty bad. So we're all pretty excited for the gym to be finished and for our new locker room, which is expected to be finished by February 2007 before the boys volleyball season. To finish it up, we're very excited about our girls cross country team. They are the academic state champions with an overall GPA of 3.98, and that's unweighted. And so we're all very excited because it's the first time we've been nominated and actually been the champions of this. It just goes to show how San Marcos students are balancing schoolwork with sports. And I believe a couple of these students are playing club sports on top of San Marcos High School track and cross country. So it's just really nice to see. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Paventa. I apologize again for making you sit through, but I'm glad you enjoyed it. Maybe you have a future up here. Okay, I would like to point out that another board candidate has come into the meeting, Ms. Roseanne Crawford. So thank you. We introduced the other board members earlier. That brings us then to item E2. Okay, we're back on our action agenda. Approval of annual teacher assignments based on credentials and coursework to teach under Education Codes 44256B, 44258.1, 44258.15A, 44258.2, 44258.3, 44258.7B, and 44263, and adoption of resolutions 0607-08 and 0607-09.
Dr. Christine Robertson will tell us what those numbers mean.
Thank you.
Ed Code 44258.9 requires that we annually report to the board verifying the legality of each teacher's assignment. The study of teaching assignments for the 2005-2006 school year and credential authorization has been completed. All teachers are authorized to teach their assignments. Due to the difficulty of the staffing at the secondary level, the Education Code provides several provisions for teachers with expertise and experience in an area not listed on their credential to teach in that area. We have provided you with that list tonight of those teachers in the areas that the Ed Code covers. So there's 6 education codes listed here, and the teachers teaching under the provisions of these codes. All the teachers teaching under the Ed Codes meet the criteria and have the expertise and experience in the subject matter they are teaching. Ed Code 44263 authorizes the holder of a teaching credential to teach any departmentalized class in which he has 18 units or 9 upper division units in the subject being taught. Ed Code 44258.2 authorizes the holder of a secondary type credential to be assigned to teach with his or her consent in a middle school in which he has 12 units or 6 upper division units in that subject. Ed Code 44258 authorizes the holder to teach any departmentalized class in which their expertise can be verified. And that would be something like a single subject driver's education class. And usually only driver's education class for this particular code. It's very difficult to find credentialed driver's education teachers. Ed Code 44256 authorizes the elementary credential, a person with an elementary credential with his or her consent to teach a subject matter in which they have 12 units or 6 upper division units in the subject. And that would be like a multiple subject teaching maybe 3 periods of Spanish. We've got science here, math classes, and maybe social science. Ed Code 44258 requires teaching 2 or more subjects for 2 or more periods per day to the same group of students. And so we have several items there, people there who have multiple subjects who might be teaching a combination core classes, English and social science, high point reading programs, usually our 2-period block programs that require somebody who has some expertise in that area to be in the classroom with. Ed Code 44258 authorizes a holder of a non-physical education credential to coach competitive sports for 1 period per day. And it is recommended that the board approve these teacher assignments.
I have a question. Ms. Rodriguez?
Just a clarification, or I don't know if you can answer this, but 44-258.7B authorizes a non-PE credentialed teacher to teach competitive sports. Would that not also apply to band director or... I mean, I just found that interesting that you don't have to have a PE credential to teach in a sport, and yet you have to have a PE credential to lead under the Ed Code. Just curious.
It would be even more interesting to note that in many districts, they don't even require a credentialed teacher to coach. And that is something peculiar to our district, which was implemented a number of years ago by Dr. Kasten. In most districts, head coaches for sports have no connection to the campus other than that they have applied for the position and been given it.
I'm particularly interested in the answer to my question because as the board member serving on the PE committee, we're going to be struggling with this issue. And I mean, is there another section of the Ed Code that allows for a credentialed teacher with some other caveat to be able to teach the
I would have to
core
research
curriculum?
that for you because the people on this list are actually the 6th period athletic PE period teachers. Athletic PE. So I'd have to look up it to see if there's an ed code for somebody like a band director, et cetera, but they normally don't teach an athletic PE period as part of a sport.
The Ed Code allows for PE, for athletics to be a PE course to satisfy a PE requirement. So I think that maybe...
But ironically,
yeah,
you're supposed to have a PE credential to teach marching band under the Ed Code. That to me, that doesn't make any sense. But just a question.
I had a question, or maybe it was just a comment. I was interested that so many. It seemed like so many of our English and math courses were being. Well, I shouldn't say so many, but there did seem to be a lot of English and math courses being taught by people who were not credentialed in that subject, and that seems for those core classes. I realize. I guess my initial response is that's problematic to me. I also, thinking about it, I realize that the people who are teaching it may have extensive background, or there may be good reasons why these people are doing that. But I noticed, for example, at Dos Pueblos, there were 10 sections of English being taught by people who were not credentialed English teachers, and in our junior highs there were 15 sections of math being taught by teachers who are not specifically math teachers. Now, so I just was interested in that. I realized that there may be good reason for that, but.
There is.
There is? Okay.
There's a lot of good reasons, but it really depends upon the person and what their credential is and how much they have of certain subject matter, upper level and or lower division level credits or units for that subject matter, trying to get maybe enough qualified teachers who are purely math, purely science, has been certainly problematic not only for our district, but a lot of districts. There's a shortage of particular positions and staff available for those positions.
I'm just... I'm looking at the English, for example, and I'm specifically picking on this because it's my discipline. I don't know how much of this would involve teaching reading, but I know that undergrad English programs usually don't deal with, the teaching of reading, which is a very specific discipline that, teachers would have to have a very specialized area of expertise. So for what it's worth, I'm just concerned about that. I think we should try to keep all of our core classes taught by people who actually have those credentials, but
We make every effort to try to do that and scours every single individual's transcript to look for the appropriate criteria to make them highly qualified if they aren't already, based on the classes they have taken and the credential they have received and what they're authorized to teach under the special teaching credentials and permits available to us in the state of California.
Thank you. Okay.
I'll move to approve.
Okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, motion carries 5-0. Item E3, release of temporary teachers as of September 15th, 2006 for the 2006-2007 school year. And Dr. Robertson, I think this is yours again.
Yes, it is. One of the things we do every year at the start of the school year is a 10-day actual seat count, taking a look at our enrollment numbers, how many students have showed up that we can verify in attendance. And unfortunately this year, after looking at our 10-day count, we were impacted by declining enrollment in our elementary school district. The trend that usually occurs at 3 of our schools, Franklin, Harding, and McKinley, every single year for the last 10 years, did not transpire this year for the very first time, catching us by surprise. This meant that we would have to involuntarily transfer 2 of our tenured certificated staff from Franklin Elementary School, who would in turn then need to bump temporary teachers in other positions. It was very important for us that we take a look at providing the least amount of disruption to student, staff, and the school programs, and no matter what, it was going to be upsetting to some. So we were able to only deal with having to work with 3 schools on releasing of staff. Therefore, we initially released 5 people, and we then were able to recalculate some numbers and have only released 4 teachers effective September 15th. Sorry. Ann did a really outstanding job of trying to locate and place these teachers in positions within our district and or surrounding districts who have offered assistance during this period of time in declining enrollment. So on your paper, we've noted that we've been able to place one of our teachers into a special education instructional aid position for 6 hours at her choice, being able to remain at Harding School. One teacher we were able to place at Goleta Valley Junior High School in a long-term position for the year. One we have lost to Goleta temporarily, we hope, for this year only. And another one's looking for working with Hope District and possibly fulfilling a long-term substitute position for them. Unfortunately, we were not able to maintain them this year with us. And unfortunately, I do have to ask you to please approve the release of these teachers from the elementary school district.
Thank you. Board members?
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. We regret that we have to take that action, but it is necessary. Okay. Item E4, Annual Declaration of Need for Fully Qualified Educators 2006-2007. And Dr. Robertson again.
Robertson again.
Some of these forms are a little bit complicated, but every year again we are required to submit a declaration of need for fully qualified educators to the Commission on Teacher Credentialing in order to employ teachers who are not fully credentialed. After making a diligent search, there are a few teachers that we've had to hire on limited assignment permits. This is, there are no longer emergency teaching permits, therefore the new area we're working under is the limited assignment. This form also verifies our use of intern partnerships that we have where we employ teacher interns in certain subject matter areas as well. So the attached declaration that you have designates the positions and the program that we're working with, which is essentially Chapman University at this point in time for internship work.
Okay. Board members?
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 5-0. Okay. Thank you,
Thank you.
Dr. Robertson. That brings us to item E5, approval of implementation of staff recommendation to develop a tasks timeline, final drawings, bid documents, and preparation of a full budget for the expansion of the main production kitchen at Santa Barbara High School. And
The board may
Dr. Sarvis
recall
will
that-
introduce this.
that we have discussed this on a number of occasions before. We're faced with potentially spending millions on maintaining kitchens at each of the schools, or centralizing some of those functions to a main kitchen. This would not preclude the development of other main kitchens as we're able to do so in the future, but we frankly think this is the best short-term fix for this problem. Dave Young will be presenting this item, and I believe we have some input from a consultant as well.
Mr. Het Young?
Thank you.
Thank
Dr.
you.
Sarvis, board members. A few changes since the last time we presented this. The report from our consultant firm is the third page of the attachment. It's labeled attachment F2. That's what it was at the last board meeting when it was a consent item, so I don't want that to be confusing to anybody as to why that was on there. Following that presentation, the employee union approached us with a concern that they felt that the organizational structure proposed by the consultant was a little too vertical and added in their opinion, an unnecessary administrative position. We listened to this concern. I also heard the concern from a few other people. I met with Brian Tangway and Frank Lynn, and between the three of us, we came to the conclusion that we could take the proposal from the consultant, modify it slightly, and address some of those concerns. And so on the report, on page 2, you'll see a sample drawing of an organizational chart that differs slightly from the one prepared by the consultant. Not taking anything away from the consultant and the work they did for ensuring that nutrition services is fiscally solvent. This chart does nothing to increase costs associated with that solvency. What it does do is flatten out a little bit more horizontal structure and does not necessitate the addition of any administrative position. It would be a classified position. Also, last time there was, in between, there were comments that people would like to see a comparison of maybe some other districts that had a central kitchen. So we operate this here. This is by no means an inclusive list. This is just ones that myself and Frank Lynn knew of. These are districts that have a central kitchen or a main kitchen. Up at the top, Goleta Union operates their whole district out of one kitchen. We'd land somewhere in the middle of this chart. We have a little over 16,000 students, I believe, in both of our districts. Towards the bottom, I included some of these just because of the numbers. Oakland Unified has 4 kitchens that they serve out of. Santa Clarita is not a school district, but there are 6 school districts in Santa Clarita that have banded together with a consortium and serve all 6 districts out of one kitchen. And San Francisco Unified serves their district out of 2 kitchens. So there's a wide variety of districts, many a lot smaller than us, many a lot larger than us that use that central kitchen concept. Again, Carolyn Larson is here this evening to address any questions you may have concerning the previous presentation that was given to board. In case you need a refresher course with anything, it was given some time ago. And Debbie Badger and Franklin are also in attendance tonight to answer any of your questions. Again, as the cover memo pointed out, we believe this is the direction that we need to go for fiscal solvency in the nutrition services program. And it's a shame that we make a lot of our decisions based on monetary needs above others, but unfortunately I think this is one of those cases where we need to make nutrition services solvent, and this was the recommendation of the consultant that was hired and approved by the district.
Okay.
And we have 5 board members here, where last time we did not.
Yes, that's correct. It's okay. Board members? Ms. Rodriguez?
Well, I'll kick it off. I'm sure we all have questions. Couple of things I was curious about. I saw the quote, I think it was from the first memo. Yeah, $4 million would be the proposed cost of upgrading all the kitchens to meet current, to replace outdated equipment. Is that correct?
That number over time would probably become larger. That's an estimate of what we know right now. And if I may back up just one thought. if I may be so bold. At the last presentation, Dr. Noel asked a question about, do we need additional trucks? And this proposal deals with only the nutrition service budget. And so I have two hats on. I have the warehouse budget from the general fund and the nutrition budget and those people, and we have drivers and trucks that are funded by both that do both functions. So Dr. Noel, I was wrong. We will need one additional truck to accomplish what we need to do over what I stated it to you at the last time this was presented.
So, Mike, I have a couple of questions. Of the $4 million, most of that I would anticipate would be the secondary schools. Is that? I mean, obviously, their kitchens are larger. There's fewer of them.
Their kitchens are larger. What's happening is, as certain things start to fail, such as large walk-in freezers, large walk-in refrigerators, when those need to be replaced, you open up, you kind of get the same situation that we have at Santa Barbara High School. When you start opening up these walls, you open up all of the problems that are hidden behind those walls, and you need to rectify those. Once you take a freezer out, you may find that there's inadequate wiring, other things that don't meet code. When you start going down that path, the health department needs to approve those plans, and they may step in and say, well, you know, this floor really doesn't meet, it may have met code at the time it was put in, but it doesn't meet the current code now. We want you to replace the floor. We want you to replace the ceiling. Sometimes you start just that Pandora's box of increasing costs and increasing costs. So the $4 million estimate is a conservative estimate based on known factors of age of kitchens. And it's a combination of secondary and elementary. And right now, we do, out of our main kitchen, serve more elementaries, so we don't have a production kitchen at every elementary. And I have to ask Mr. Lynn what the percentage would be on that, if it's 50-50 or what, as far as where we feel in our near future that we'd have to make some kitchen upgrades within the next 5 years.
Okay. Well, I had a reason for asking that, which I don't need the answer to that right now. I was just kind of curious about that. Another question that I have is, if individual schools wanted to go on their own and follow the Peabody model, what would the impact of that be? And let's just say 2 or 3 of the elementary schools wanted to have a completely independent kitchen cafeteria operation, self-sustaining, use the revenue
By Peabody
within.
model, I assume you mean that as a charter school, they run their own kitchen. They
Correct.
do, but they are still a part of the National School Lunch Program.
Right.
And we still do all of their bookkeeping. We still submit all of their paperwork. We still send reports back and forth.
Right.
So there's a lot of administrative costs that we do for Peabody. But if a site wanted to do that, it would just be, could that site identify a funding source to allow them to do so?
Well, assuming that on top of the costs, the administrative costs that they would still have to bear, if it was
Well,
self-sustaining from the cost of the lunch.
A lot of times they may want to buy, like OAS does currently, a food above and beyond what is normally furnished by our Nutrition Services Department, and find a funding source for the difference. They may wish to hire additional staff. So Peabody has additional funding that they supplement with for their meals and the food that they purchase. That would be something that we wouldn't object to, but we want to make sure that that did not adversely affect the financial solvency of nutrition services or increase cost to nutrition services. As long as it didn't increase cost to nutrition services and all the guidelines of the National School Lunch Program were met, I don't believe we'd have any objection to any site wishing to do that.
So that my question is, how would that impact the central kitchen? Would it have an impact, or are you counting on having?
Well, it would be one less site that would be served the hot meals out of the central kitchen. However, some of these sites that I've been aware of that are requesting this have some pretty old kitchens. So when that equipment starts to fail and needs to be replaced, who's going to fund that?
Right. Well, assuming that was handled. I mean, I realize that there are some hurdles that the school sites would have to go over, being able to do that, and there'd have to be an agreement with the district. But I just basically wanted to know if they were able to meet those and find the funding sources for their upgrades for their
I'm sure that
equipment.
I'm sure that we go through the steps to work out some sort of agreement and bring that to the board for approval.
Okay, so this doesn't count it doesn't rely on having a certain number of schools participating. Okay.
No. As in my cover memo, a lot of the things that are economy of scale are by doing things with quality control, with food portion control, being able to order in large quantities. A lot of those things are going to save money. And if one or two schools decide that they want to be an independent type production kitchen and take care of that funding where it doesn't necessarily impact our budget, I don't think that's going to say now this main kitchen concept is no longer feasible. I don't see that as a result.
Thank you very much. Okay. Ms. Harder?
Yeah, thanks, Madam President. Mr. Hetjank, I cannot argue the economies of scale. Now, I understand entirely the reasons behind the proposal, but I'm really disturbed going through the proposal because it talks about really critical things like safety, sanitation, decreased food costs, decreased production costs, consistency, productivity. There really isn't a focus on quality. And that's my biggest concern about a central kitchen is the quality of the food. I mean, we've been talking a lot through this whole wellness policy process about trying to increase the quality of food served to children with an emphasis on fresh fruits and vegetables, low-fat dairy products, whole grains. And I really, really have concerns about that. And I'm not sure if there's anything in this chart that really deals with those
Let me ask
kinds of
Mr.
issues.
Lynn to step forward and help address that question. Fresh fruits, vegetables, those sorts of things, as far as I know, will still be delivered to and prepared at the school site. The main production kitchen would deal with the hot entree type items.
Presumably a scratch-cooked item.
Right.
Entree.
And the increased quality in that is that all that is prepared in one kitchen. Mr. Lynn is there to supervise that preparation along with other people. And so I don't see the quality of any of our food diminishing, but Mr. Lynn would be more qualified to answer that than I. So I'll
It
let him-
actually raises other questions because if we want to maintain quality and do that kind of preparation, cutting up fresh fruits and vegetables and that sort of thing, presumably you still need a certain amount of equipment on the school sites. You still
Correct.
need refrigeration equipment, you still need prep areas, all that kind of stuff.
But you wouldn't need the large walk-in refrigerators and freezers. You could do it the smaller commercial grade portable units.
So are we talking about cannibalizing existing site kitchens in order to bring equipment to a central kitchen?
The equipment that we would bring to the central kitchen would be of the types that used for the hot food preparation. It would be the ovens or things like that. We would not be bringing any other type of equipment, to my knowledge, in the proposal.
Okay.
Is I correct, Frank?
And then explain to me what the duties of a production kitchen manager would be.
Across the top, the production kitchen manager would have underneath that position, I believe, in the chart, it has two assistants. That person would be in charge of ordering, procuring the supplies, making sure that was taken care of. They would be receiving the orders and the numbers from all of the different sites as to how many meals that day were coming in. They'll be overseeing the production of the secondary menu as well as the elementary menu. He or she would be taking care of the paperwork, the production records, all of the requirements for documentation by the National School Lunch Program, which is now being done by 12 people, would be done by one person, and would allow those 12 people who are spending an hour or two a day on paperwork to spend more time on production and quality of food.
Let me stop you for a second. When you're talking about a site cafeteria manager, they're in touch with their students going through the cafeteria line. They develop a strong sense of what their students' likes and dislikes are based on, waste and excitement at seeing a particular item in the food line or that sort of thing. So this person's not in touch with students. No one there is really in touch with students going through a cafeteria line. So who's putting together exciting menus?
In fact, they are. What's happening is under the production kitchen manager, the production kitchen manager, for example, might be might end up being someone who is already is someone working in this district, and when the production is over, they're not going to be producing all until 2-3 o'clock. They would go over to one of the schools and work the line as they always have been. The service kitchens, food service officers and assistants, many of them will be working in the production kitchen, overseeing and working with the production manager, and when the food is ready, not necessarily escorting the food, but going to the sites that they are already operating and have been historically, and still contacting with the students the same amount of time. They will be manning the POS systems, manning the carts, manning all of the food service sites.
So there's not a disconnect there.
There is no disconnect whatsoever.
Mr. Hart, I'd like to point out to board members that this is a proposed organizational chart, and we're not even asking you this evening to approve this organizational chart. We're asking you to approve the concept so we can go through and work out the details of this chart with the representative union and bring it back to you at a later date. And maybe we didn't make it clear that some of the people in this chart would be traveling between main kitchen and central kitchen and the sites based on the need to be there to help distribute the food after the food's been prepared. So there'll be, some people will be assigned to both sites. They'll maybe at the main kitchen in the morning, and then at La Colina Junior High once the food is prepared and delivered.
No, I appreciate that this is part of an ongoing process and there's nothing set in stone with regard to the chart. It's just that I'm really concerned about the deterioration of quality and moving from site kitchens to a central kitchen. And I want to know who's going to be in charge of that. Who is going to be specifically, monitoring those kinds of concerns. That was really my main focus with regard to questions tonight, and I know that we need to see more things, we need to get more information. But I just have one more question for Mr. Lin. I know that we have inventory controls in place for the first time this year, and there are other checks and balances in place. We don't want to let that play out and see what kinds of savings we can reap. I mean, I realize Santa Barbara High needs a kitchen, but otherwise, there's no possible way that we can let that play out financially.
Well, I'm not sure I understand the exact question, what you're asking. We have an inventory program that allows us to track our inventory, what goes where, and we can price that out. Part of the issue is how we use the inventory in the individual kitchens. For example, we have 12 kitchens, and each school might prepare to what they think is going to show up that day. And it might be, part of the problem is the ability of one person, myself, the nutrition service director, to have oversight over 12 production kitchens. I don't know if any of you have tried for any reason to visit more than a couple of sites in a couple of hour period. It's impossible. So that particular job in terms of quality control and inventory control is impossible for one person to do. It is a lot easier if all of the production happens in one kitchen. You asked about quality control. The quality control at the production kitchen, instead of relying on 12 different managers in 12 different kitchens in various states of decline and or serviceable kitchen equipment, you have a director of nutrition services, a production manager, and 2 other production managers, 4 people overseeing the entire flow of the food from receiving to preparation to delivery to the sites. And when they get to the sites, you have the other 10 or 11 or 9 managers who had been on the sites previously still being there to continue the quality control chain that starts with the director and flows on down.
Okay. And then just a final comment, no one actually needs to respond to this. I appreciate the recommendations with regard to increasing time for students to purchase and consume their lunches. I think it's necessary. And I also agree philosophically with the idea of closing high school campuses for 9th and 10th graders, and they do become a captive audience then for food services. But I would really like to get input from the sites, Dr. Sarvis and Mr. Zettel, about those kinds of changes and how they could be implemented. I think it should be site-driven and not necessarily food service-driven. I think that we probably need to hear from principals and from parents and students on that one. Thanks, Mr. Lynn.
Ms. Malikoff?
I have a couple questions. We had a last proposal. It has each site and the different people who would be working at each site. Is that going to be rearranged according to this chart? Is that been, because there seems to be some inconsistencies here, and I'm
Well,
not
once
sure how
again, what it's finally going to look like is going to be the result of discussions with nutrition services, the union, and the sites themselves.
Okay,
You
so-
still need X number of people to serve the meals at the sites. You're going to have one person on the site doing cold prep and getting the salad bar ready. You have at each site anywhere from 2 to 5 or 6 POS systems or service sites, sales sites. You're going to have people there to man those positions as well. So as we go through the plan, if we're directed to complete the plan for you to take a look at, we will address those issues more, completely and fully.
So this will come back to us at some point with each site and how many people and so forth.
Yes, and this massaging of the chart on top really doesn't change anything as far as looking at the recommendation of the consultant of the people that are listed per the site in the previous report. We clarified that the delivery drivers and stewards are in fact supervised by the purchasing and warehouse and not food service, and just took the top of that chart, the administrative, and spread out some responsibilities, made it more horizontal, and eliminated an administrative position and made it a classified position.
Just one small thing is on here is you have previously 2 drivers and 2 trucks full-time, and now you're moving to 3 drivers with 3 trucks. I guess, as you said, another truck is going to be added.
No, the number of drivers would remain the same in the report because the report adds 1 driver.
Right, that's what I got.
But what was not in the report.
Was the truck
what
itself.
was not in the report before was the truck that increased driver would drive, and I was in error when responding to Dr. Noel's question that we had a truck and didn't need one. In fact, we will need 1 additional truck.
It just seems like a lot of transportation of food. I'm just sort of surprised that only 1 extra truck is needed, but I don't know. I guess you're transporting less. Before you were transporting the food uncooked, and now you're transporting it cooked. It just seems like it all has to be done at once.
Well, there are other considerations in terms of transporting food. Right now, we have a warehouse staff that delivers supplies from the warehouse to all 12 kitchens on a regular schedule. Those will no longer be happening. So you won't have the warehouse. You'll have 12, 14 fewer warehouse deliveries, but you will still have the same number of deliveries of food. So it's not even a wash. We decrease the number of trips from the warehouse trucks for delivery of supplies, but not of food. Because all the supplies will be at the central kitchen.
Except the food will be the fresh vegetables or the fruit or whatever. They still have to do that. That's every day.
That would come out in concert with, that's part of the logistics of delivery. You drop something off, you backhaul something else. You drop something off, you backhaul something else, and that's all part of the logistical.
In terms of the people moving around, are we responsible for getting people back and forth between sites?
We have a lot of that happening right now. We simply pay some mileage. We have about, I'm not sure the exact number, but we probably have 10 or 12 people on staff right now that shift from a central type kitchen to their site.
Okay. And Mr. Hetyoung, when Roosevelt was redone, did they retrofit the kitchen there, or is it still in its original form?
No, the The kitchen was in the part of Roosevelt that was not rebuilt. It's in the administrative.
In the multipurpose room. So it was
room
never
area.
it was never
And that-
retrofitted or anything.
No.
Okay. And
To my knowledge, no, because
Okay.
a lot of that happened in 2000 when I came to the district, and at that time I was a secondary project manager and wasn't that involved in elementary projects.
Okay, well, maybe we should ask. Another thing is that when you put that chart on about the different districts and so forth, that it might be interesting to look at some of our feeder districts, whether it's Hope or Goleta Valley, and see if they're interested in becoming part of our central kitchen. And lastly, I do also have a concern about quality, and there just seems something more homey about having a kitchen in the school itself, but I guess we have to do what we have to do. Thank you.
I had a question. Oh,
No, it's
I'm
okay.
sorry.
Go ahead. I just have one. You go for it. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. First of all, I actually attended Franklin School when they did not have a site kitchen, and so there was a central kitchen for the district, and did not seem particularly problematic to me. In fact, we were usually quite thrilled to have, the food truck pull up. But I understand that there are a lot of, there are a lot of sites that do want to. Yeah, it was kind of like a treat, But I understand that there are a lot of sites who do want to maintain their autonomy. So I'm just, so I was happy to hear you say that would not be problematic for, if a couple of schools want to continue to have their own site and they can find a way to do that. I was more interested, well, two questions, and they're actually kind of unrelated to each other. But one was, have you had much discussion with parent groups such as ELAC or PTSA or site councils to find out how the parents feel about this or what input they would have? Okay.
We had a task force group that consisted of cafeteria managers, some of the consultants, and some other of the office staff, but we didn't go to the public with it because my opinion would be have a plan and then discuss it as a plan.
I don't know at this point in the process how you might do that, but I think that parents and students are sort of two major stakeholders in this, and would be useful to have their input on how it's going to be done to address some of the concerns that have been raised tonight, because we've been getting these concerns from parents, through emails or letters, et cetera, phone calls. So I think that might be useful to just hear the concerns that they have. I think that way they can be addressed in the plan rather than having to hash them out once the plan is already formulated.
Well, I agree, because there is one common misconception that's been voiced quite often, and that is the misconception that central kitchen equals bad food, and that's just patently false, especially considering the intricacies of what's happening in this district right now vis-a-vis the equipment and the number of kitchens and the staffing levels that we have.
Yep.
Part of the reason we have to do things the way we do is because of the condition of the kitchens. We could do things differently. We would like to do things differently and more scratch cooking simply because we will have the equipment and the staffing that is capable of doing it safely and in a sanitary fashion.
I think if parents' concerns about that could be allayed, that would be a step in the right direction and would make this a much more palatable. Yeah, sorry.
Pun intended. And please,
proposal. Yeah,
please
it would
remember
go
that
down a lot easier.
40 up until this point, 40% of our students are receiving meals from a centralized type kitchen anyhow. So again, we're not reinventing the wheel.
Right.
We are simply putting another wheel on the vehicle.
The other question I had, which is completely unrelated to that question, was if we were just going to remodel Santa Barbara High School's kitchen because it has to be upgraded, how much would that cost if we were not turning it into a centralized kitchen?
I had that somewhere. On the back page of my cover memo for this agenda item, it's just a rough estimate that would be $750,000 to $900,000 to put the kitchen back, not as a main kitchen.
Okay. Okay. So that is just the cost for, so we increase it by, we about double that to make it a centralized kitchen.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Ms. Harder?
Quick question. Would we be adding a teaching station with a central kitchen to Santa Barbara High, or is that off the table at this point?
Either way that we chose to put the kitchen back together, we have the capability of adding a teacher station because that was proposed to be funded with developer fees. So if the board decided not to go with the central kitchen concept, not to expand it, and wanted us to put the kitchen back together as a main kitchen that's not larger, capable of handling more schools, we could still add a teaching station.
Okay.
For the proposed what do we call it, the vocational culinary arts program.
Okay.
I think was the temporary name we gave it until we have an official one.
And then what is there any impact on the ROP program at DP?
The impact would be that if a main kitchen concept would probably allow the ROP at DP to have a little bit more space to operate. But it would not take any space away from them.
Impact by way of another culinary arts program?
Well, I mean, that impact, but also that the program would not go away because.
No, this should
In
have
fact,
no effect on the county ROP program.
Okay.
I think it's
And-
important to say that this would not be anticipated to be an ROP program.
Yeah.
One at Santa Barbara High School.
Right.
The one at Santa Barbara High School,
But
that's right.
everything at DP with regard to the ROP program would remain status quo.
Hopefully improve.
Thank you.
Yes, including the equipment, and I've heard concerns about that. No, we would not be taking equipment out of that
We would not be
program.
taking an oven to the main kitchen that was needed by ROP.
I'm
Bob?
here.
Yes.
The question that I can't get out of my mind is how in the hell did we get into this mess? I've got one document that Mary Stark passed out that said that the food service operation ran $1 million in deficit spending over a 5-year period. I guess I tuned in about 6 years ago, one time looking through the budgets, trying to find money, and I saw this huge surplus in the cafeteria fund. And I'm just, they're little pieces, I'm not sure I can hang them together. Then I hear these stories about, yes, things are falling apart, and indeed, when you go into an old structure, you have to bring it up to compliance and so on. And I wonder, well, but where was the maintenance work 5 years ago? Where was the maintenance work 10 years ago? Why all of a sudden is everything falling apart? Why were there not replacements as you go? Maybe they couldn't even afford to pay for them out of operations, but we're not paying for this out of operations either. In my 8 years on the board, I don't recall many urgent pleas to replace paper-wrapped insulation on some facility at a kitchen. Everything is collapsing. It seems, and we have. I think the public deserves. If you're asking to spend $1.5 million, $2 million for new capital investment to make this operation solvent, I think the public deserves an explanation of why did it fail. And I have yet to hear a candid, forthright explanation of what went wrong and how we're not going to repeat it. Okay. I'm particularly concerned because I'm doing this from memory, but I see here you mentioned paying part of this capital cost out of Measure V. I think you said $700,000 or $800,000. Was it my memory?
The original kitchen project was a Measure V project with a contract of $447,155.
Yeah.
That contract was terminated after spending $283,000 and change.
So how much
what we
more
would-
Measure V money do you plan to
Well, what
spend?
we need to do is bring back that Measure V priority list to you, take the amount of money that was the difference between the original contract amount of $450,000 from $283, take that amount, bring that back to you as part of the going down this road, bring that chart back to you with that
Okay,
cost, with
without
the
all-
Measure V
without all
portion,
the-
and show
the-
you what the effect would be on remaining projects.
Yes. Can I get a short answer, Mr. Head Young? Are we going to spend much Measure V money? Is that envisioned here? 100,000, 200,000, 500,000, $1 million? And I ask this question, Mr. Head Young, because I've been visiting our high school campuses where they are severely impacted, do not have enough classroom space, where there are 2 or 3 dozen teachers who do not have classrooms of their own, and where not one new classroom was built with Measure V money.
Well, while
That
Dave,
was part, Dr. Sarvis, may I finish? I know you don't like to hear this kind of criticism,
Oh,
but
well,
I
I'm sorry, I
I
was
have a
gonna
right to make
respond.
it without being interrupted, sir.
well, I'm very sorry.
Thank you. I think the public wants to know what happened and why you didn't use Measure. We had the priority list. You didn't come to us then and say, we need more money. Now all of a sudden, we have a crisis, we're going to bail it out, $1.5 million, $2 million. We have a shortage of classrooms on our campuses, and you're going to use more Measure V money to bail out a losing food system. Okay? Well, that's the economic side. I'd like to comment a little bit on some of the comments that have been made about quality, because quality is a multidimensional notion. There's something qualitative and nice about decentralization. There's something qualitative and nice when you go to Peabody and eat their food, especially when they may have grown some of it, or when you go to OES. There's a chance for a school to have a little individual character rather than getting this bureaucratic cuisine trucked in. I think that's a value, and I would like to hear, not from you folks who work in the central bureaucracy, but I'd like to hear from the people at the sites. How do you feel about this? We haven't had any input from them. Thank you.
May I share with you, Dr. Noel, that I spoke to one of the cafeteria managers at just one school, someone who I happen to know, so I called her on the telephone. And I suppose if I could encapsulate her comments, she would say it's a sad but necessary idea. That was her take on it, so I thought I would share.
Well,
Dr. Service?
I thought you were asking questions, and I'm sorry I jumped in prematurely. I think a number of your comments are rather rhetorical, actually. You asked the question about how we got to this point, and I can't be Mary Stark, but I do know, and I can say in just about 5 sentences, that 2 years ago, Mary Stark identified a problem, and she said, this is a serious problem, and it took a full year of accounting and research in accounting to track that down, and when she knew the extent of the problem, she brought it here to the board, and that was just about a year ago. So she identified the problem, and I know we all gnashed our teeth at that point in time, because we all thought for years that we were well in the black in nutrition services. And here come to find out that through appropriate accounting, when we accounted for all of the expenditures that went into nutrition services, we weren't in the black at all. In fact, we were in the negative. Then something had to be done. So for the overall accounting, as soon as that was fully identified, that was brought to the board. Now, I'll let Dave speak to the issue of Measure V funding, because I think that's also a serious issue for us. So,
Well, I'm sorry, Mr. Young. Before you do, I'd just like to, I want to express my concern that I don't want you to feel like the board is sort of attacking you and blaming you. I think certainly the only people, yourself and the people up here, the only people who were here at that time that a lot of that happened are members of the board. So I certainly don't want the staff to feel like you were being attacked. And I think that we did get a number of answers. They weren't answers that we liked, and they weren't answers that make everything clear or sort of I won't go there. Clear or understandable. But I think Mary did give us a lot of the information that, you know, we all want to say, how did this happen? And we want to say it over and over and over and over again until we get an answer that we like. Unfortunately, the answer isn't something that we like. The answer is people made mistakes. Now we have to live with them. And somehow they weren't caught by anyone, including board members, at the time that they happened. So I'm much more concerned in what do we do now? I don't want to, I really, you know, don't want to keep going back to what happened then, what happened then. I do want to make sure that we have procedures in place that our accounting is going to be accurate, that we're going to be able to operate a financial or fiscally sound practice with food services. But I think we have put some safeguards in place. So I'm really much more concerned with whether, as Ms. Harder said, is this something that maybe people aren't really thrilled about, but we kind of know that it's necessary. I personally don't think that centralized kitchen necessarily means bureaucratic food, and I'm not quite sure what bureaucratic food means, but I think it's possible to create a lot of food that is quite good, and I would like to trust our staff that everybody is interested in doing that and will make every effort to do so. So I want to give you a chance to respond, but I didn't want you to feel like we're kind of beating up on you here. Okay. Thank you.
There were a few
Madam
questions.
President, may I
I'm going to give
comment?
Mr. Hetjank a chance to respond, and then we'll come back to you.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Hetjank.
There were a few questions, so let me attempt to address them. If I missed any, please remind me, and I'll attempt again. As far as the question of replacing equipment, we've continually been replacing equipment in our kitchens. One of the things that we've done over the past few years is replace ovens that had some asbestos insulation in them that was becoming friable. We didn't want to take any chances of any of that going past any seals and being in the food that we serve to students, and so we replaced those ovens. So we have gone through periodically and upgraded and replaced equipment. We probably haven't done it to the amount that should have been done, maybe due to funding sources, maybe due to lack of changes of positions over the time, but between food service directors, between directors of facilities, between chief business officials, somewhere there wasn't a person in charge long enough. I'm not making excuses. I'm just telling you that we have replaced equipment, sometimes on a preemptive basis, and sometimes because it died and we had to replace it basis. As far as the Measure V funds, if we would have opened up that kitchen that we opened up and spent $283,000 and had to have put the whole kitchen back with $900,000 of Measure V funds without any concept of a additional teaching station or expanding the central kitchen or applying deferred maintenance fees to the project, that amount of total Measure V money would have probably been more than the proposed under this concept. Because of the increased costs of putting that kitchen together, on the believe it's the third page or second hard copy, be page 4 of the packet, right before the attachment F2 of the old, is a chart that's proposing that out of this total amount spent to put the kitchen back together, that we spend 30% of Measure V fees. 30% of this project would come from Measure V, 40% from deferred maintenance, and 30% from developer fees. So you take the estimate of 1.5 to 2 million, take 30% of that, have that number, look at the amount already spent. That would be the additional encroachment on Measure V. There's going to be an encroachment on Measure V whether we go back as a kitchen that's not a main kitchen or that is a main kitchen. The fact is for reasons pointed out on the cover, examples of conditions that we discovered when we opened up that kitchen: structural framing damaged by dry rot, mold in the freezer, walk-in refrigerator, and in the walls, irreparable deterioration of the freezer and walk-in refrigerator, refrigeration system leaking, failed plumbing, non-compliant substandard electrical installations, differing ceiling conditions, additional hazardous material abatement, and non-compliant fire suppression systems. You know, these things, you know, you open up a system and all of a sudden, you know, somebody comes in, does an inspection and says, well, you need to do this now, you need to do this. Once you start tearing in so far and finding problems, you also have the DSA field engineer who says, okay, you've opened these up, now I see this, now I want this done.
Mr. Hetyank, can you verify my mental math here? If we're talking about a projected $1.5 million project, if 30% is from developer fees, that's $450,000. If 30% is from Measure V, that's $450,000. And if 40% is from deferred maintenance, that's $600,000. And assuming we've already spent $283,000 of Measure V money, an additional $170,000 of Measure V, is that?
Yes.
Okay, thank
but
you.
I would caution you on using just the lower figure of that range.
I was just trying to put together some, you
Yes,
know, quick and dirty sketch for myself.
You're correct in your analysis.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I would call, Mr. Hetyank, I have to remind you that somewhere in that process, we ended up having spent $600,000 for a faculty parking lot at Santa Barbara High and $2.85 million for a swimming pool. And it seems to me there are some value trade-offs that one would like to have had presented long ago on this issue, perhaps back about that time. One might have made a less luxurious pool. One might have foregone the faculty parking lot.
I would point out that in addition to that, parking lot also serves as a place for putting our interim housing for our classroom renovation, and a lot of some of the cost of that was also done to stabilize the hillside, which was starting to erode, which would have had to have been done somehow, somewhere with some funds, and we would have had to have paved an area, brought in utilities for the interim housing. So true, it was a parking lot. The fact that the faculty parks there was a site decision, not a facilities decision, but there was a lot more involved in that than just a parking lot.
I'm sure.
Okay, Ms. Rodriguez?
Just one final, coming back to my questions earlier, excuse me, and hearing the discussion that there are some concerns that people might have. I think I'm feeling less uncomfortable about the central kitchen idea than maybe I was initially in terms of food quality and things like that. But I am also happy to hear that there may be the option for school sites that want to maintain their, or become independent, I should say, since really, other than Peabody, nobody is completely independent, running their own program in a self-sustained fashion with the administrative costs the district would need to be reimbursed for. I think that gives sites the option, if they really are very uncomfortable or unhappy for some reason with the way the central kitchen idea is working out for their site, given their unique needs, that there might be this other option. And Harding has put together a draft proposal to go independent. Whether that works out or not, you know, is subject to a lot of discussion. But
I've not seen any proposal from Harding. I can tell you that OAS is probably what I would consider to be halfway to that point. They grow some of their own food. They do order in excess of what is normally allowed, or the types of things that would be furnished from nutrition services, and they do fund that difference. And it's meetings, it's discussions, and working through it, but it's working.
I appreciate that we have that flexibility. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hetyank. Do we have public comment on this item?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Susie Cawthorn, followed by Kate Parker.
It's nice to address you tonight. Thank you. I will keep this brief because I feel like we've all probably are hungry. But I did want to talk just briefly one more time about, what did we say, the sandwiches and that kind of thing. We what I see as a problem, I've been at 16 of the 20 sites in the last 10 days, actually, so it's very doable and challenging and fun. And what I've addressed each of the sites, I've said, what are your issues, what are your concerns, what are your challenges? And it was very consistent that the cafeteria, the central cafeteria, the food, was one of the major concerns at the sites. And I agree with several of the board members. I'm really happy to hear that there will be an option. I think it's really important that we don't force a decision down from on high that you have to have the food and you have to do it this way. If they have an option that you say, if you can run your cafeteria and make it even $1 profit, so it's not draining the general fund, we would give them the opportunity to do that. I think that in the term, two things. Our direction for solvency seems to be centralized, and I would say it should be appetize. According to the study, 12% of the high school students are eating in the cafeteria, and I'll tell you why. The food is not very good, and we have not been given the options to even bring on comparable sandwiches from local vendors. Our carts have all gone away. And so what we have now is a group of high school students who don't eat until 3 o'clock. Well, that's not optimal for students in terms of what they're able to absorb and pay attention in their long classes. So I would say that we need to do some more model following, and I had been out actually and talking to Gwen at OAS, and there are also some issues that I would say definitely need to be addressed and worked out, because in ordering, they're now having to order larger quantities and send half of it to the compost pile because they can't order the small amounts that they want in terms of a boutique cafeteria. So when we're looking at these people opting out, I think we need to have a structure in place that says, we won't make you order this so that we can get it cheaper for the entire district. I think if we're going to do that, it has to be done individually, of course, profitably for each site. I think that another issue would be if we're looking at the costs and you break down the 300,000, we're talking about increasing revenue. It's pretty much a no-brainer. Let's close the 9th and 10th grade and have them eat on campus. But if we are doing that, we've got to have appetizing meals and we have to have good food. And I would just say that I brought some menus from some, chicken curries, salad bars. There's all kinds of options. And you look at OAS, who started with 40 kids in the cafeteria, now feed 180 a day. If you build it, they will come. And if we give them good food, I think our numbers will go up and our revenues will go up. So I would think that we need to really focus on that. And perhaps Mr. Lynn is able to do that at a central cafeteria. But I would say he needs to probably address the site consumption and look at, as I believe you very ably prompted him to do, is go to the sites and go to the students, they have their wellness groups, their fitness involved in these. I know at San Marcos High School, they were looking at how can we make this cafeteria a nicer place to be, and the students were involved in the furnishings, but they need to be involved in the food offering, so thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cawthon.
Kate Parker, followed by Brian Tangway.
Good evening. My name is Kate Parker, and I'm a candidate for the Santa Barbara School Board and a parent at Adams School. And like Susie, over the past few months, I've been visiting our elementary, junior high, and high schools, and our cafeterias have often come up as a topic of discussion. Parents and administrators are concerned about the food that our children are served. Funnel cakes or cinnamon rolls on the breakfast menus, defrosted burritos or fish nuggets for lunch. In our junior highs and high schools, at least, students have access to an extensive a la carte menu. They don't have to purchase the so-called reimbursable meal that our food services department chooses to offer, but our elementary students are stuck. They must take that meal on a tray, bring their own lunches if they can afford it, or have nothing. Neither the elementary nor the secondary communities believe that a central kitchen will raise the quality of the food that is served to our children, and it's telling to me that this report tonight talks about standardizing the cafeteria food and closing high school campuses to raise revenue, but nowhere does it actually suggest improving the meals that are prepared. I applaud district staff for looking to the future and seeing that kitchen renovations will be required within the next few years and that there's currently no money to pay for them. I am confident that they have caught this predicament in time for us all to work together to come up with solutions that can both modernize our kitchens and make the food that is served to our 16,000 students something that we can all be proud of. However, a central kitchen alone is not the final answer to this problem. As I see it, there are two possible ways to improve the food our district serves. One is to work with the community to find a funding source for kitchen remodeling and then move to more autonomous kitchens using our own Peabody School model. And the other is to create a central kitchen, but to turn that production kitchen manager position that was listed into an executive chef position that oversees menus and preparation using the model that Chef Ann Cooper is putting in place in the Berkeley Unified School District. And if you're not familiar with what's going on at Berkeley, there are articles about Ann Cooper and the very hard but very important work that she's doing there all over the web right now, but I particularly recommend the September 4th edition of the New Yorker magazine that has a very in-depth article about what's going on up there and the service that she's providing for the children of Berkeley. I believe that the status quo is not acceptable. We all want our children to have high-quality food, and I call on this school board to be innovative and decisive in order to bring real reform to our school lunch program. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Parker.
Brian Tangway, followed by Susan Horn.
Brian Tangway, CSCA president. It was Franklin Delano Roosevelt that once said, "It is common sense to take a method and try it. If it fails, admit it frankly and try another, but above all, try something." And this seems to sum up where we are as a district with nutrition services. And on behalf of CSCA, I want to say that we recognize that change is inevitable and necessary if nutrition services is to regain ongoing fiscal solvency, just as we recognize that such an outcome benefits classified employees. In our opinion, the staff recommendation that you've heard tonight is a better product than the consultant report, and if accepted, will set the stage for what we believe can be productive negotiations. Naturally, a proposal that is this sweeping raises concerns for our members. A few positions may be lost as we move to a centralized structure, but at the same time, existing positions stand to be enhanced. Provided we have a seat at the table and a meaningful role in the discussion, we can support the central kitchen concept. But we do want to say that by no means is this central kitchen idea a cure-all. Its implementation will inevitably create as many challenges as it solves, but maintaining the status quo is not a viable option. So, we pledge tonight to work with the district in a spirit of collaboration. Let us move forward together toward a fiscally sound program that provides the quality nutrition students deserve, parents expect, and that all of us can be proud of. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tangway.
Susan Horn, followed by Roseanne Crawford.
I'm Susan Horn, and I first looked at this agenda item and was very worried about it because I didn't understand the background. So by now I finally read all the background, and I can really support this proposal. I was able to talk to Mr. Hetjonk and Mr. Lynn about a lot of my questions, and I'm going to get a lot more of them answered soon. And my conclusion is that I'm not sure that all the things in the report can be implemented because some of them look logistically kind of difficult and the detail's not there. But I think it does look great at this point and has a lot of potential.
Thank you, Ms. Horn.
Roseanne Crawford.
Roseanne Crawford. I'm a candidate for Santa Barbara School Board. As a parent, I am pleased to see you moving ahead with this plan. When I first heard about this, I was of the opposite opinion and felt that it would be cheating our neighborhood schools of on-site control of their cafeterias. After examining this further, clearly this is an opportunity to improve the nutrition in our menus by serving home-cooked and prepared meals in state-of-the-art, efficient food centers. Currently, at most of our schools, they are heating up frozen, pre-cooked dinners that have very low nutritional value. They're awful. Another factor is savings that will be realized by maintaining 2 upgraded kitchens for hot food versus the cost of maintenance for all our schools. Certainly in an ideal world with unlimited funds, of course, it would be great to have state-of-the-art kitchens at all our schools. The reality is we must live within our means. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Crawford. That concludes public, oh, I'm sorry? No? Okay. That concludes public comment on this item. And it brings us to our, the end of our action agenda, unless do we want to take action on this item now?
I'm ready.
Okay?
And I think it's important to state the wording of this because it's really about more information gathering. So I move to approve implementation of staff recommendations to develop a task timeline, final drawings, bid documents, and preparation of a full budget for the expansion of the main production kitchen at Santa Barbara High School.
Okay. Okay. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Okay, motion carries 4-1. All right, that brings us to the end of our action agenda. We will take a 15-minute break. Back to order. We will, before we move on to our conference agenda, given the lateness of the hour, the fact that we have several items from the consent agenda to go back to, and we have to adjourn into closed session following this meeting, I'm going to suggest that we pull item F2 and item F3 from our agenda and schedule them for our next meeting. Are there any objections from board members? Hearing none, we will pull those two items and we will go on to item. Oh, that's the trick. Ask you a question when you can't talk.
Well, I hate to see us pull F3.
Okay. Okay, if we can.
I'm fine with F2 being brought back, but I wonder if the agenda item can be made a little broader. A report on the single school plan template and the format of the presentation.
Okay. Good.
Okay.
Okay. So we'll bring that one back. Item F3. We'll try to get through both of these. Let's see where we are when we finish item F1. And if it's not too late, we'll try to take item F3, and if not, we'll postpone it. Okay, item F1, report on plan for board focus goals. Dr. Sarvis?
Let me move into this quickly. In May 2006, the board adopted board focus goals. There are 6 goals. Considerable planning has taken place over the summer as to how we should be addressing these goals so that we can accomplish them. You will see elements of this planning in the LEAP document. In fact, you've already seen those in the LEAP document. In the summer training, such as the AVID training, in comprehensive instruction, for English learners in the district, in the elementary district. And one feature that we think is particularly important is that these schools are each setting their performance goals, so that school by school, each school takes some responsibility for moving the whole district forward in each of these areas of student performance. Now, there are 6 goals. We have a number of, if you want to view this as total quality management and a team approach, we have a number of teams who are involved in accomplishing each of these, and the heads of these teams, and I will introduce them as we go, are for the first goal under student achievement. And remember that we had a separate goal just for student achievement for English learners. That will be our second goal. But for the first goal under student achievement, our leaders are, of course, Robin Sawaski and Jan Zettel. I've asked them to highlight what we are planning to do because I'm hoping that there will be some board discussion and some question about these, and that's why we were willing to move the next item forward. But the next item also contained the sheet that has the school site goal setting. So when we come back to that next at our next meeting, we'll be going over that sheet as well. So let's start with Robin Sawaski and highlighting the activities that are going to lead us into higher student achievement in the areas that the board specified.
Okay, so the first a board goal of student achievement. You can see you've got your, I believe it's 6 or 7 different items. And in fact, the first 2 should read 1.1, 1.2. I can see on my copy it's not on there. I'm going to, rather than go through each one of those because you can read the description underneath, I'm just going to summarize kind of the elementary focus for that student achievement goal. And I guess the overarching piece that I want to say is that we're going to continue our focus on supporting all students to meet and exceed the grade level content standards. And that, of course, is through high level instruction and high expectations. Some of the pieces that you'll see in the single school plans and in the LEAP and noted here are specific targeted areas like targeted intervention. And you've heard from the Waterford, we had a presentation on the Waterford early reading program that we have in our 5 Title I, top 5 Title I schools. It's hard to say that. We have more than 5 Title I schools, but the ones that have the biggest need. There's that in place, of course. And then we also have new this year, and starting this Thursday, our AVID, the advancement via individual determination. It actually has a slightly different name at the 4th through 6th grade, upper elementary grade levels, and it's still Pathways to Learning. And so it's with all of our 6th grade teachers, which will then be translated into the terms of the students. It's really about learning strategies. And so all students and teachers and families actually will be involved in that AVID training. And I don't want to forget the accelerated learning for not only our GATE students and the GATE programs in all of our schools, but also it really follows with professional development for our teachers. And so we're going to continue with that certificate through UCSB for not just our individual GATE teachers at some of the schools, but for all teachers that want to increase their knowledge on reaching all kids, higher level thinking and that kind of thing. Also, a part of that focus is ongoing monitoring and analyzing student performance data. So really looking at student work, and that happens through the site leadership teams. We're continuing with developing that, the capacity for leadership at the sites, and also through the grade level teams. So that's a summary of the piece for elementary on student achievement. And I'm going to let Jan talk about the secondary level.
Well, I'm really pleased to see goals that are far-reaching and that really address the needs of this district. You worked long and hard on this, and I want to assure you that we are going to work long and hard on reaching these goals. We're looking at not small things. We're looking at large-scale moves because it requires large-scale moves and large-scale changes. And if we've not done enough, we'll know at the end of this year, and we'll go at it again, and we'll really look to things that will really move our children into higher levels of achievement and close that gap. We're looking in the secondary level, and I'm going to kind of go right through 1.1 through 1.7 just quickly. We're moving towards professional learning community teams or course-alike groups of teachers at every one of our schools, 3 to 4 of those teams, who meet to analyze student standards-based assessment data and plan high-level instructional strategies to help students to reach those goals. I'm now getting minutes from those meetings. I'm very pleased to see those meetings. The level of conversation. We're not talking about tardy strategies. We're talking about students, instruction, and assessments. The next piece is that we're moving to a new student information system as well as a district-wide software used to analyze student progress. That's key and it's critical for us. We haven't had it before. We don't have common assessments. We don't have a means to track our students except with the CSTs, and that's a postmortem, and we don't need that information actually. We need formative information, and that's why we're looking at these different systems. AVID, of course, we had a presentation on. We're very excited about that kind of support for our middle level students. Pathways and Enlace, similar kind of a project that we're joining together with Kellogg Foundation and with UCSB to work with underrepresented students, reducing achievement disparities through support classes. We're looking at increasing our dual enrollment. We've already met, I've met several times with Santa Barbara City College. We met, when did we meet, Brian? Yesterday with
Just
John
yesterday.
Romo. Time flies when you're having a good time. We're looking at increasing our dual enrollment. AP courses, I don't know that you knew this, but will all be standardized through the College Board certification this year. College Board is asking that every teacher that teaches an AP course turn in a syllabus, and they will certify those courses. We're also looking at encouraging the taking of the PSAT by all sophomores and juniors. We're hoping to promote a college-going culture, and that's one of the first things that we want to do there. Okay, Robin, next.
Okay, on to the next one. And particularly in the elementary district, you're well aware of our large number of English learners. And so I'm very thankful that you decided as a board to have that as a special board focus goal. And in the elementary district, I think you also know that we've put a large part of our effort in professional development to English language development for our English learners. So one of the ways that we're going to be meeting our goals here is that every single English learner in our elementary district will have daily English language development. And that's a separate curriculum area. We've talked about that as well, so I won't go into that. But I can guarantee you that will be happening. It's already happening in several of our schools right now. They're grouping kids. They're teaching to language level. It's very exciting. And the teachers are working. We're in the middle of our professional development for a huge number of teachers. We're going to finish that up in December. Teachers are already working together, developing lessons together, sharing materials, talking about best practices. And we will eventually, hopefully by the end of this year, have common lessons across the district that our teachers have been involved in planning and working with Susanna Dutro and a team kind of across the state. So that piece is moving forward. Kind of there's an urgency, and we're really pushing that agenda. And of course, along with that, as I spoke about in the student achievement goal, we are being very diligent about frequent monitoring and really making sure that we model that. The principals come together and they're going to be sharing data on English learners and how well they're doing, and just ongoing. I'll be sharing it with you either here in this venue or through a board brief. So you'll also have that information on all kids, but particularly our English learners.
In the secondary district, our ELD instructors will be working with academic language development. In each of the school disciplines, there is a particular vocabulary, and our EL students oftentimes don't understand that vocabulary or the meanings that are being discussed within each of those academic disciplines. So academic language acquisition is a key for us. Of course, all of our courses in the secondary district, all of our schools will include High Point language development instructional sequences and courses that bridge into the core. It's critical that our students receive core instruction along with ELD. If they're not getting that, their pathway is blocked, and so we have to figure that out. And I think we're well on our way to doing that. I'm getting very encouraging reports about the success of students in these bridge classes. We're also encouraging our teachers who are CLAD certified to work a little harder and get that CDI certification so that they're a little more finely tuned with English language learners in their classes and can teach the core using ELD standards and serve the needs of those students in those classes. So CDI training is critical for us. Thank you.
Well, the third goal area is special education, and Joanne Pulley just delivered a workshop to the board this last Friday on the state of special education. Part of that was headed in this direction as she talked about the future of what we would be doing with our regular ed and special education students. So Joanne Pulley is, of course, the person primarily responsible for this, however, not entirely responsible. It's important that each of these be taken on as a team, and we don't just say, okay, Joanne, deliver this, because she can't do this alone.
Thank you. Just to touch briefly on our workshop last Friday, Ms. Rodriguez, you had a couple of questions that you wanted to address. I'd like to beg your indulgence and ask for a little more time to prepare for you some of the responses with regard to the graduation rates, because we have 1 year's data, but I want to go back a little further because last year was a peculiar year for us with the waiver, and to be as comprehensive as I'd like to be, I'd like to get that information for you. That's at least going back 3 years, if you don't mind. I had asked that you had asked that we might be able to encompass that in our presentation on the board goals. I can't do that tonight, I'm afraid.
Well, that's okay. The other one, the other question that I had, and maybe you could add this to your list for that next time, is more information about the transition programs.
The transition program.
And opportunities for increased academic opportunities for kids in the program through City College.
Yes.
So those were the two things that we didn't get to. You don't need to talk about them tonight, but I'm hoping we can address them.
I would be glad to. Thank you.
And I met with all of our special ed people about transition programs in Santa Maria today.
Oh, great. Were you at the training all day?
Right
you were
next
there.
door.
We sent a room full of people. Good,
Yes.
good. Our first goal in special education in increasing student achievement. Sorry, I can look at you and see you as blurry, or I can look at the text and see it as legible. So I'm opting for the text. And in increasing student achievement, we're going to start looking at the STAR test data of our students. We're going to go back 2 or 3 years on that data, have our special education teams at each of the sites start to review that data, and on a bi-monthly basis, our department chairs will be bringing that information into us. We'll break out into elementary and secondary groups and start developing some data-driven decision-making models. We started today at San Marcos. I was with their special education and admin team today, starting to look at their data. We're coming back in 2 weeks to move forward in some of our plans. So we're already off and running on getting a good start with the at least 3.1. On 3.2, improving integration and collaboration between gen ed and special education staff, what we want to start doing is the first thing, obviously, is compliance, 100% participation of general education teachers at IEP meetings. And our review of our CASEMIS, our California Special Education Management Information System data, will let us know that we have those teachers at those meetings. That's information that we collect for the state. We submit pupil counts in December and June, so we have access to that information. Our monthly meetings with elementary principals started just last week, and we are looking forward to developing some conversations with regard to collaboration and reinforcing collaboration between gen ed and special ed. We'll start with our secondary principals, I think, tomorrow. We have a meeting this week as well. So those conversations between gen ed and special ed will start at the administrative level. Our 3.3, in improving special education instructional delivery models and related services, we want to develop and ensure that students are being delivered the state content standards. We want to see academic rigor in the classrooms. One of the commitments we've made, and I was a bit leery about putting this in paper, but it's down there now and we're going to do it. Either both of the coordinators and I will conduct 4 walk-through visits through every special education classroom in this district this year. And we're going to be asking walk-through types of questions. When I talked about this with Mr. Morgan and his staff, they got pretty excited about it. We'll develop a question, we'll walk through the classes, and we'll look for student-teacher interaction. We'll look for alignment to the standards. We'll look for time on task. We'll look at instructor effectiveness. We'll develop those questions, walk into those classrooms, and start to answer some of the questions that need to be answered to ensure that we're fostering an environment that supports academic achievement for our special education students. District-wide review of best practice will be conducted in our departmental staff meetings. As I mentioned last Friday, we meet on a monthly basis with each of our departments. We'll start looking at that, at what is best practice, and what is research-based practice. And we'll be putting those practices into place throughout the year. We're looking at developing an RTI type of model for our speech and language services. What we want to see is early identification and early intervention, and I want to make sure I reinforce that that's what the response to intervention model is. RTI is early intervention and early identification. Our 3.4 in provision of effective early identification in general education, this is our RTI model that we're implementing at our elementary schools. We rolled out at McKinley last year. We have 2 elementary schools this year that will be moving into the RTI model. And then our second part in achieving that goal is to develop some training for our general education staff so that they have the support and the strategies that they need to be effective in implementing early identification and early intervention.
Can I ask a question now, or should we wait until the end? Just a quick question on number 3.1. When you talk about the reviewing STAR test data, will that item also incorporate, because I think along with increasing achievement is also increasing our knowledge of how well students are doing given the appropriate testing, and we talked about this at the workshop last week about students who are in between, say, Kappa and STAR. So is that embodied in that, is taking a look at the appropriate assessments for each student?
Yes.
Or for students in general?
Yes.
Although the new testing will not be in place. I mean, now we have this grade level testing, we have Kappa testing, and the in-between test will not be in place for another year, I believe.
Spring of '08. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Joanne.
You're welcome.
Well, in the fourth area on revenue enhancement, I know that we've put upon Bob Wolf's services here quite a bit lately in the absence of an assistant superintendent for business services, and Bob has really risen to the occasion and filled in big ways. So I'm asking Bob to present this to you tonight. This would be an area that will be carried overall in conjunction with the assistant superintendent for business services. But of course, Bob is our director of fiscal services, so revenue enhancement will be his baby.
Revenue enhancement covers a couple of areas. One, getting more kids in the classroom, or keeping the kids that we have enrolled in the classroom. There's a variety of different ways we can communicate that to the staff and to the parents. Also to look at cost containments and more effective use of the cost and the programs that we do have. The fiscal services will be working with the program staff, and we've opened communications with them to make sure that they're spending their money where they're supposed to in the most efficient way and not overspending their budgets. And we're looking at other avenues to maybe refinance our bond debt to get more money into the construction bonds.
You'll see some items that look more like a cost analysis, but that's really part of the total, looking at both containing costs or reducing costs and increasing income. You'll see some very specific items by way of major study of special education encroachment, which of course Joanne Pulley would be a major part of as well. Bus transportation revenues and costs, and consideration of school closure and possibility of facilities leases, revenue enhancement. In the fifth area, which is staff recruitment and retention, our team leader, of course, is Christine Robertson, who's our Director of Personnel Services.
Keywords: expand, enhance, encourage, and support. We have a lot of processes already in place, but there's a lot of things that we still want to do using those particular terms. We want to expand our outreach to a lot more publications. We've been hearing about new ones. We've been researching and doing some organizational studies about what's out there and how people other districts are getting information out to attract staff. We're looking at job fairs, attending more of those, and student teaching programs where we're starting to make visitations and talking with the actual programs and the upcoming teachers in hopes to be able to encourage them to apply and work with the district. We're enhancing the number of workshops and trainings and staff development opportunities we're providing, and we're making sure we're communicating that a lot better with staff out in the elementary and secondary sites. We are looking at a lot heavier on in-house opportunities for promotional opportunities, and we're looking at our teacher intern program. We've looked at developing an administrative intern program, which I'm still wanting to get underway this year. We have identified approximately 30 of our teachers who have administrative credentials and are currently enrolled in a program, and so there's a good opportunity there to be taking a look at growing some of our own for the future here. And also, we have started a new classified job availability matrix that we're posting every single week out here on the bulletin board, and we're having a lot of activity with people stopping by and taking a look at, gee, what's out there for me? And so that's been a real plus, and we've been receiving some positive feedback about that. So we're going to continue that and continue to solicit ideas from everybody about further things that we can do to enhance that. We're going to be we support the retention of our staff through a variety of activities, incentives, programs, and other educational support systems, and we're still trying to define also what more we can do in that particular area. I find this to be a very exciting, challenging process. Did I say challenging? Yes, okay. And it's been rewarding, and there's a lot more to do. We're a work in progress. And as you've seen, we've already revamped the office, so that's one of our works in progress, to sort of change the environment around a little bit and make it a little more inviting and open to people. So I'm open to any suggestions or other things that you would like us to try and do to continue to recruit and train and select highly qualified and NCLB qualified staff for our schools and students.
This is directed more toward Dr. Sarvis and Mr. Zettel, but have we thought about trying to create a pathway in our high schools for students who are interested in the teaching profession? Because City College has a program that feeds directly into UCSB's program. It seems to me we're not taking advantage of a huge resource that's out there.
And that was a major part of our discussion and our reason for inviting John Romo to sit down, come over, sit down with us just yesterday. So we had Carol Lee and John Romo to discuss just that issue.
And did you talk about the ROP program that Tori Babcock runs at St. Inez High School?
We had Paul Turnbull in with us, yes. The sixth area is budget reporting. And again, this is an area that Bob Wolf will be key in.
Actually, we've decided not to do it anymore. No, actually, in budget reporting, what we've done is we're instituting a web-based program that will have the site administrators and their staff that they want will have a password they can get on, and they can request their own reports anytime they want. There'll be about a 24-hour delay, so the information that they look at today will be as of last night type of issue. That training is going on next week for the site administrators, and then we'll meet with them individually. We're looking to put information out on to the district website that will explain school finance for people who want to get on there, and parents and things like that. And we're looking to make sure that our presentations to you are as simple as we can possibly make it, so you can understand, with lots of pictures and charts and graphs, and bring your own.
Part of this focus goal had to do with program-based budgeting, and I don't see any mention of that in the black ink here.
We always program-based budget. Basically, we meet with we're going towards site-based budgeting. We're providing information to the sites as to the revenue that they have available as distributed by the assistant superintendents of business or superintendents of the districts. The sites then get that information and they put it into their single site plan. There's software that incorporates their plan in the instructional issue and translates that into a monetary issue. And once they get that done, they give it to us and we put it into the plan or put it into the budget that you will see. So everything starts at the site. We need to give them the information as soon as we can get it, which sometimes is challenging. But it'll be, you'll see those in the site, in the single site plans, in the LEAP, anything that's in support of the board goals. So the site administrators will design their instructional program. They're the ones that have contact with the kids. They're the ones that are assessing the kids. They're the ones that know what each program needs. And I assume that each school site, even though they're in this district, has different levels of kids with different levels of needs, and that's best identified by the site administrator and that teaching staff at that school.
So how much do we spend in the high school district on interscholastic football every year?
We don't spend anything. We spend the cost of the contract.
We don't spend anything?
We spend the contracted amount of the stipend to the coaches by certificated contract. All of those other costs come in through the ASB.
Mr. Wolf, can I ask my question?
Yes, sir. I thought you did. I'm sorry.
The point is that it's almost impossible for certainly a member of the public, and hard for a board member, to ask a question like the one I just asked, and get an answer in terms of a total accumulation of resources. And I recognize that resource that's being spent is people. Okay? But then I look at the budget sheets that we're given, and it simply shows for a school so many FTE faculty. Doesn't say what they're doing. Doesn't say whether this particular person teaches 2 periods of math and 2 periods of football. And that's why it took a couple, 3 years ago, it took the assistant superintendent for secondary about 2.5 weeks to come out with a single figure. What are we spending on football? Now, I'm not picking on football. I'll generate other examples of things that I would call that a program, for which there's apparently, I don't know your field, but I thought there was something called like cost centers, that it's a matter of cost accounting, that if you have a list of things we spend money on, then anytime we want to know where we are, we say, what have we spent? For example, the AVID program. How hard would it be to tell the public and the board what we're spending on AVID? Then it would be very nice at some point, that program is going to be evaluated. It'd be nice to be able to look and say, oh, now we can do a cost effectiveness evaluation of this program. But we can't do it unless we have that's what I meant by program-based accounting, program-based budgeting, so we can know what we're spending on all these. I started to make a list today. I got through 14 programs just in reading tonight's agenda.
And as the program people come to me and tell me that they've got a new program, such as AVID, we set up an account code for that. We have a separate account code for AVID to match that. In the secondary district, the assistant superintendent indicated that he was going to use EIA funding and some other funding for that, which would sort of disappear into the resource code. And so we set up management codes so that we could pull out costs for AVID, and we could track that, and he could track how much money he was actually spending on that particular program. And so as I'm brought aware of those, or I'm made aware of those programs, I asked them, the program people, how they wish to account for or track those funding, and as we come to an agreement, I set up an account code structure in order to facilitate that. It hasn't necessarily happened in the past. I don't keep track of football because football isn't necessarily paid for by district funds. It's paid for by gate receipts.
Curriculars, which were in fact general unrestricted funds.
No,
they're not. They're not unrestricted funds, sir. They come in. The school sites have gate receipts at the games. Those gate receipts.
Talking about the faculty positions, and the stipends, the things we approve.
Well, the stipends are on the contract. Each coach gets, I think it's $3,500 for the head football coach, and that's all that the district pays for. The district funds pay for. The rest of them are contributions from the public.
The bottom line is then that everything is crystal clear and the public understands the whole process program by program?
Well, I'm not necessarily, I can't tell you how many English teachers Santa Barbara High School has. They would have to answer that question for you. I know that they have a certain number of students, and they have an FTE associated with that. And that would be a question for personnel and for the site program people to tell you who's teaching what.
Thank you, Mr. Wolf. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Just a
Ms.
related
Rodriguez?
question to the budget discussion. We've had this a couple of times in the past about just the format for the budget document itself. And
Yes.
that relates to item 1, the first item on the list as far as putting information on the web and financial backup. And we've talked a little bit about, I guess, what's sometimes considered the gold standard of budget documents, which is the Clovis District. And they have a pretty intensive process to develop that, and I'm sure a lot of staff time goes into it. But it does break things down programmatically. And it is set up through, they have a budget advisory committee, which we did look at doing in this district and have not done it for some pretty obvious reasons from staffing standpoint. But that is something that I continue to be interested in is can we move in the direction? And I think this year's budget document was certainly an improvement over the last couple of years where it was more like the SARC report. But if we could get move in the direction of just presentation, and that could be started right now, and it doesn't necessarily all have to be done by the fiscal people. I mean, there could be contributions made from other staff that help move in the direction of more breakdown and more clarity of funds and how they're spent for the layperson to understand. So I was just asking if the budget document is also included in that first.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Thank you.
Hopefully the document that you saw this year is the document that you'll see ongoing as we improve it in this particular staff. Unfortunately, we don't have the staff that Clovis has in order to put together that document.
Thank you, Mr. Wolf. Okay. That brings us to the end, to the end of item F1. We have postponed item F2, and I'm going to postpone item F3. We have a number of items on the consent agenda to go back to.
Madam President, I object to postponing item F3. I believe there's a member of the public came expressly to hear that item and to talk about it. And I think it's a matter of sufficient importance that it shouldn't be postponed. It's only talking about the question of the solvency of the elementary district, somewhat of a problem of some moment, I would think.
I'll be happy to take the public comment, and then we'll postpone this item until our next meeting. Who do we have?
Mr. Zarate, would you like to do this, your comment this time? Yes?
Hello. I sure wish I would have been here for Mary Stark's last report to you. I was on vacation because I would have liked to have actually asked her a few questions about it. I didn't. I know that one of the things that she recommended was that you look into the solvency of the elementary school district, and that she recommended that you go to an outside source for that. And I think that's really what you ought to do. You've had 6 weeks now since she's left, and you haven't done anything. And I know there's some discussion that you want to wait till you hire somebody. But, you know, the person that you hire has got to learn what the system is, and they've got backlog of work to do. So I think they've got a lot on their plate. And I think an outside person, an outside agency that is not politically connected, and even more importantly, not internally reporting to the superintendent, is going to be a much better source for an independent audit and evaluation. And I see, too, that in your board goals, whoever printed this up said that the board goal was to do a business office will undertake a study to improve the fiscal solvency of the elementary school district. And the assistant superintendent is going to do that, and I assume that would be Mary Stark if she was still here, and yet she's the one that recommended that she doesn't do it. So you've got kind of a conflict there. So, and I think we are in trouble. You know, you're not meeting your minimum reserves of 3%. You have this unfunded retiree medical benefits of $277,000. You have a very non-performing cafeteria operation, and give the kids time to eat. My kids have never eaten at Santa Barbara Junior High in your cafeteria because you don't give them enough time. You cannot put 800 kids through the cafeteria in the time you give them to have lunch. And also, you're not operating your schools at optimum capacity. You should consider closing some. So I think you should do this study, and you should do it by an outside person. I think that would be the best thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zarate.
Just a quick comment. We would not expect Mary Stark to do that.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. All right, we have postponed item F2 and F3. We will return to our consent agenda. Item D4.
Hold on.
Yeah. Dr. Noel, I think that was,
I
you
have to
pulled
go
that item?
Some back through. Yes. No, wait a minute. D5 I pulled. I didn't.
D4.
I thought I
know, but-
pulled D5.
Okay, well then we can vote on D4.
Move to approve.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, item D4 passes 5-0. Item D5.
I wanted to understand better the out-of-state, the travel in the bottom right-hand box, $2,793 on Title II funds, which I think of as staff development funds, but I think of it as for teachers, and these are administrators. Do I just misunderstand Title II?
The Title II funds that we reserve at the District Office for Centralized Services are used by our staff to go get information at conferences and professional development so that they can disseminate that information out to teachers.
Okay, thank you very much.
That's where it comes from.
Okay,
And
do we
that-
have,
and that's compliant.
Yes, combined.
Okay,
too,
good. That was
yes.
my question. Thank you very much.
Move to approve.
second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 5-0. Item D7.
That was me. I just wanted to know which schools. I know it's being piloted at McKinley this year. This is a steep review of response to intervention, I believe.
Exactly. The next one up that's starting like very soon is Franklin and then Adams. We also we have funding put aside. This actually would cover an additional third school new, so it'd be 4 in total.
Right.
And both Cleveland and the Academy are kind of, shall I say, fighting over the opportunity to be the next school. So we're
Okay.
looking at that.
Okay, thank you.
I actually had a quick question on this one too. It says that the date for the project started on September 1st. Has it already begun, or?
Just, no, it has not.
Okay.
That we haven't used any of these, the funds, obviously, because it hasn't been approved yet. We had initial talking, and all of Amanda Vander Hayden's work is free. This only pays for her graduate students that come and assist our school teams.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I had questions on this one also. It says in the memo that the preliminary results from the targeted intervention with academically at-risk students showed an increase in student performance. It doesn't say by how it's measured. Could you?
I was referring to maybe you will recall Rebecca Norton, the psychologist at McKinley, spoke to the board and gave an overview of the program of STEEP at McKinley, and she shared some of the data that they had shown on the targeted intervention in the classrooms on the increased student achievement and how quickly they were able to identify those kids that responded to the intervention. She talked about the won't and can't and won't, or I can't remember the exact terminology, can't do, won't do students.
The reason I ask is because on the next page, it indicates that really the consultants are advising the psychologists. And the evaluation that the consultant that's going to go on at that level has to do with program evaluation data reporting on evaluations, percentage of evaluations that qualifies for services. These aren't the same measures that you're talking about on the first page, and I was just a little confused by that.
But
See,
are
those
you,
aren't student
you
performance
speaking
measures.
of
Those are
the,
psychologists' performance
the
measures.
program evaluation about the effect of the evaluations? Are you talking about that first paragraph?
Yeah.
In the
Statement of
description? Let's see. I think she's using the word evaluations and assessments to mean the same thing. I mean, we're still looking at student
Okay.
growth.
Well, that's all I wanted. I
Right.
didn't understand the criterion
I
variable in this.
understand,
Yeah.
right.
Okay.
I mean, it's all about student achievement.
Okay, thank you very much.
Move to approve.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 5-0. Item D9. Approval of recommended personnel actions.
Yes, I have questions. Are there others also?
No, I believe you pulled this one.
I was really puzzled when I looked on the latter two pages, because there on the right-hand column it gives funding source, and these are stipends, and then it tells the purpose, the position, and I see stipends going to an AVID conference, for a homework center, more AVID conference, lots of AVID conferences, house coordinator, all the funding source being co-curriculars, and that one I simply don't understand. I didn't know that's what, I thought co-curriculars were something different. So maybe someone can give me a definition that will let me accommodate these.
I'll try to take a stab at this. Many of the school sites have particular positions that they can fill and pay a stipend for that particular position. For instance, a person who's going to undertake a monitoring AVID program could get a stipend for doing that for the year. On here, a homework center gets a stipend for monitoring the homework center with kids every day. So these are positions that are within the co-curricular and athletic stipend possibility for being able to pay teachers and other staff to provide services for the students at school.
Well, see, apropos of my exchange with Mr. Wolf, if I'm trying to sort out the cost of a program, I've now, I'll look at co-curriculars, which I thought meant athletics, and indeed it says athletics after the slash. And yet I find academic programs in there. It's very hard to sort this kind of thing out and say, oh, well, we're spending this much on athletic co-curriculars. Oh, but you have to look, I guess the term now is drill down into the data to find,
Yeah.
you know, you see what I mean?
Doctor, we'd better take a look at this one.
Thank you.
To my mind, these are probably people who went off to the training.
Yeah,
And
well, I would expect them to be paid out of, not the same budget that funds music.
so we'll take a look at that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we will come back to item D9 at a future item then. Yeah, item D9. Okay, that moves us to item D12. Approval of Peabody Charter Schools unaudited actual reports for 2005-2006.
I actually pulled that, and I know that it probably isn't the appropriate place to reflect the debt that they carry to the I-98 fund, but I'm wondering where that would be reflected.
And they indicated in writing to me that they've decreased their fund balance to 3%. They had it like 5 or 6% in order to help pay us back. And so I don't know for certain, but as you look at this, you look at page 3 of the document under liabilities, down toward the bottom of the page in the H column, you'll see about $653,000 in accounts payable. I believe that's what the amount is. I would have to verify that.
I knew that it was about $700,000, so I was looking
Right.
for a figure in the liabilities column, and I just wasn't looking closely enough. Thank you.
Okay.
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 5-0. Item D13, approval of purchase order. Report for the period September 6th through September 19th, 2006.
I asked that to be pulled because I have to plead ignorance about what the Pathway Partnership is about. If I have been told, I have forgotten. It's on the back, the very
Yeah,
back page.
on the
third-
back page.
Third cell from the bottom. UCSB, $26,000.
Yes, this was the Enlace partnership. They are providing $26,000 at Santa Barbara High School to pay half of the salary for a pathway coordinator counselor, and we're picking up the other 26,000.
I see.
So it's a partnership.
And that's coming out of secondary general fund, according to this. Is that right?
That I'm going to have to check.
That's what it says right here.
I know, but
Oh,
that
okay.
doesn't seem right to me.
Oh, okay.
I'll check.
Thank you.
Okay, then shall we hold this one out too then?
Can we move to approve with the exception of that single item?
Okay.
Yeah.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. That brings us to the end of our agenda. I'm sorry. Yes. Dr. Robertson?
I need to request that you approve the rest of D9 with the exception of that last section, or none of these people are
Yeah,
going to be
thank
paid.
you. Well, yeah,
Okay.
I actually was.
Thank you.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, thank you, Dr. Robertson, for bringing that to our attention. Okay, that brings us to the end of our agenda. Coming events, do we have any coming events to announce?
No, I don't have any to announce.
Okay.
Can I ask if we have a time for the city council meeting? We have a meeting.
I
this
believe
school-
it's December 1st in the afternoon.
In the afternoon. Thank you.
Okay. Any final board comments?
I'm concerned with what I see to be a general problem, and that is a tendency to, it shows up in this item on Mary Stark's recommendation that we have FCMAT come in and do a solvency audit. And I see that the response is that we should do it internally. And I relate that also to a discussion last week where Dr. Sarvis and I had our normal difference on whether or not we need outside evaluators to look at some of our work. And I would simply like to express my view that all great educational systems that I'm aware of have been built on with some idea of peer review, which has to do with getting other views, other eyes to look at problems. And it's the principle that I stand very strongly on.
Well,
Doctor-
that's not a response. That was written so that we could have a discussion of this, and frankly, I'm trying to keep you from spending more money out of the elementary budget when we may have the talent in the room.
Dr. Noel, I mean, without benefit of a discussion, I happen to view very favorably the idea of FCMAT coming in. So I think we should have the discussion, and I think
Well,
maybe
it's-
your conclusion
it's
was
prejudged-
premature.
It's prejudged in that list of items on the focus goals.
Okay.
It already says that the business office will do it.
So noted.
Prejudges the question, is why
Okay.
I have concern.
Okay, so noted. Are there any other comments from board members? Okay, future agenda items? Perhaps this will be one? Okay, that brings us to, we will adjourn the public session, we will adjourn into closed session.